LoveLore Library. Chapter 1005. As the sun turned to the west, Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing were on their way back to the residence. The Great Liang was more open and free than Ming Qi, and it was a common thing for husband and wife to go out together. But because Xie Jingxing was too famous, almost everyone in Longyi knew him, and wherever he went, he would be surrounded by astonished gazes. Some days ago there were rumors that Princess Rui and His Highness the Prince of First Rank appeared to be united but were actually separated, and their relationship was as cold as ice. Now that both of them were traveling hand in hand, this rumor was dispelled. If it was really like the rumors that both of them were unfamiliar with each other, why would they travel so intimately? One did not know which family's mouth was speaking nonsense. Ever since Shen Miao came to Longyi, this was the first time she came out for a stroll. Xie Jingxing was very familiar with this place and bought as she walked. She was not a greedy person, but today it was as if she was affected by Luo Tan as she bought a carriage full of big and small things. Both of them bought in front while Tai Yi and Song Yang paid at the back. Even so, Xie Jingxing still felt that Shen Miao was somewhat strange and looked suspiciously at her from time to time along the way. Shen Miao, however, felt that her mood was unprecedentedly relaxed. It was as if after that dream, all the unwillingness, resentment, anger and hatred in her previous lifetime had been unraveled. Vengeance was still needed. However, in this new life, it wasn't just about vengeance. Those stars that shone in the dark years made her feel that there were not only bad things left behind in her previous lifetime. For this new life, it was even more precious. The current her was braver, more determined and more frank than before. They could face their feelings openly, and they could also passionately embrace a brand new life. After all, this her was a completely different person from that one. She was in such a relaxed mood and had a smile on her face from the beginning to the end. Like a child looking at these things with novel eyes, she even said to Xie Jingxing, Longyi and Ding capital are indeed different. One think that the various places in the Great Liang have their own customs. If there is a day that one is able to travel to famous mountains and great rivers and see different sceneries, that would be good. Xie Jingxing smiled. What is so difficult about that? It is easier to say than to do. Shen Miao said, sometimes one is envious of those uncultivated people in the pugilistic world. They are carefree and without any worldly affairs and live a very exciting life. Xie Jingxing looked at her thoughtfully. Shen Miao said, why are you looking at me? His lips hooked up as he held Shen Miao's hands and smiled. After the matters of Ming Qi and the Great Liang are settled, I will bring you to wherever you want to go. Shen Miao smiled at him. This is you returning my wish. Xie Jingxing was slightly stunned. Thinking of the wish that Shen Miao had mentioned when she woke up, a malicious smile suddenly appeared on his face. He hooked his lips and said, you have been reminding me of that wish today. Is it because 2 months have passed and you really want to? Shen Miao turned and walked away. I am not thinking about anything. Song Yang and Tai Yi followed behind. Song Yang's expression was awkward, and Tai Yi's tanned face was flushed red. The two of them could not bear to watch. It was naturally a good thing that the relationship between the masters was good, but to let the two of them serve in front of him was simply abuse. He might as well go guard the tower prison. When the moon gradually rose, there were fewer people on the streets. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing had also strolled for a day and felt somewhat tired. It was rare for her to be in high spirits today, so Xie Jingxing accompanied her. LoveLore Library. Seeing that both of them had returned with a composed expression, Jingzhe and Guyu then gave a sigh of relief. Xie Jingxing wanted to bathe and Shen Miao also returned to her own room. Jingzhe had already helped her to prepare the hot water and said, Furen should go bathe first. The small kitchen has already prepared a meal and one can eat it after a while. Most likely one is tired after a day outside. Chapter 1006. Shen Miao complied. The bath water was very warm and it was so comfortable that it made one drowsy and sleepy. She lay on the bed and Guyu was attending to her side as she said, "This servant has not seen Furen smile like this for a long time." Shen Miao recovered to her senses. In fact, she often smiled. It was probably because she had stayed in the harem for a long time in her previous life that she understood the principle of not losing even if she lost. No matter how gloomy the road ahead was or how disadvantageous the situation was for her, she would subconsciously put on a smile first. When the enemy saw your smile, they would not be able to figure out what you were thinking in your heart. Even if one could not confuse the enemy, it was also good to disgust the other party. Since her rebirth, she was used to this kind of appearance, but that smile was subconsciously brought out and was not sincere. How could it be the same with a smile that came from the heart? Now her eyes were curved as if they were filled with slight satisfaction. Like a warm jade, it made her delicate and beautiful face look even more charming, making one unable to move their eyes away. Jingzhi noticed the red string on Shen Miao's wrist. When Luo Tan gave Shen Miao the red string, Jingzhi did not know about it, thus when she saw it now, she was very curious. "Furen, is this red string newly bought from the streets?" "It is somewhat unique but it does not match well with the clothes." Guyu also saw it and smiled. Previously Pu Tua Monastery sold this kind of red string. 1 copper coin for 5 strings and said that it can be used to pray for marriage. Jingzhi smiled, 5 marriages only worth 1 copper coin. It is really too cheap. She also felt somewhat strange. Does not Furen not believe in these things the most? Why did you buy it? But speaking of which, if His Highness saw this string, one feared that he would not be happy and would think that Furen is already a Qin Wang face, so what marriage is there to pray for? Jingzhi had a lively temperament and at this moment she imitated Xie Jingxing's unhappy expression to speak, making Shen Miao and Guyu laugh out loud. Guyu laughed and scolded, "Mischievous ghost. Is His Highness someone that you can make fun of?" Shen Miao waved her hands and said, "Later let people place the dishes in Xie Jingxing's room." Both of them had always slept in separate rooms as Xie Jingxing had his own bedroom. Jingzhi was surprised for a moment before smiling. "Furen wants to eat with His Highness." She could not help but feel happy for Shen Miao. These maids saw that Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing slept in separate rooms but did not know how to persuade them. Who would have thought that after this calamity, their relationship would advance by leaps and bounds? It was a blessing in disguise. Shen Miao said, "This rope is very agile." Guyu looked at Shen Miao in surprise as she did not know why she would suddenly say such words. Shen Miao looked at the rope and sighed softly. But this time, her eyes were relaxed. This day was bound to come. Unlike the previous times when she was worried about gains and losses, this time she was fully prepared. Everything in this life was different from her previous life, including people and things. Therefore, she was still full of expectations for the future, but she would not bet all her future on one person. Grow by yourself, become someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the person you love, become equally powerful, protect the things you want to protect, and understand the feud you should understand. It was that simple. She let Jingzhi bring a handkerchief and said, "Help me to twist my hair." Xie Jingxing put on his inner clothes and walked out. He had bathed for a long time and the water was somewhat cold. When he was alone, there was no lazy smile on his face but rather a somewhat cold expression that could not be seen clearly in the night. He was actually not a very passionate person and under his cynical appearance, there was only a disdain towards the affairs of the world. Chapter 1007. When he went out, he saw a few exquisite dishes and snacks in the middle of the room. Xie Jingxing frowned, "Tai yi." He was not used to eating in the room as he was a person who loved cleanliness and was very orderly in private. The bedroom was a place to sleep and meals must be eaten in the hall. After calling out a few times, there was no response. Suddenly the door opened and it was Shen Miao carrying a wine jar in. That wine jar was very big and she was swaying as she carried it. Xie Jingxing went forward to catch it and placed it on the table before asking, "What are you doing?" Shen Miao said, "I searched for a long time in your storeroom and found this jar. After smelling it, I estimated that it was 10 provinces incense and estimated that it was quite old, so I carried it out." Xie Jingxing paused and opened the wine jar. Indeed, a mellow and sweet smell of the wine hit his face. He smiled instead, "Amazing. You also know about 10 provinces incense and Uncle Tang actually did not stop you. 10 provinces incense was a top-quality wine and there was a price but no market. Even if one had more money, it would be hard to buy. There were only 3 jars in the entire residence of Prince Rui and Shen Miao carried 1 jar. Coincidentally, this jar was 50 years old. One feared that Uncle Tang would cry silently with heartache. Shen Miao smiled, "I have drunk it before." Xie Jingxing was suspicious, "Drunk it before?" Shen Miao did not speak anymore. When she was the Empress, what kind of good wine had she not drunk in the palace banquets? Even though a jar of 10 provinces incense was precious, it was not to the extent that she would look at it differently. But one did not know that she had been the Empress before and was dazzled by the dazzling lineup of things in the palace. Even if she looked at it again, she would not care about it. But in an ordinary family, even in an official's family, some officials would not have the chance to drink a mouthful of 10 provinces incense in their entire life. Shen Miao patted her head, seems to have forgotten to bring the wine cup. Her eyes glanced at the bowls that were used to hold the rice and simply scooped 2 bowls full. Xie Jingxing looked at her incredulously and asked, "Shen Miao, are you an alcoholic? I will accompany you to eat." Shen Miao said, "How can there be no wine when there are dishes?" Xie Jingxing crossed his arms and looked at her for a while. Suddenly, he remembered something and said, "If you didn't mention it, I almost forgot. That day at Azure Heaven restaurant, you drank a bowl of wine in front of so many people. Shen Jiaojiao, you have to be careful in the future." When she was drinking, she was tender and charming, elegant and heroic. That moment of amorous feelings made others unable to take their eyes off her. Many of the men in Bai Xiaolu's eyes were glued to her body, and at that time Xie Jingxing was very angry. If he did not care about his identity, he would have carried Shen Miao on his body and left. He patiently instructed his wife, "In the future, don't drink outside. If you want to drink, you must have me present. Even if I'm present, you can't drink too much, especially not in front of other people. Shen Jiaojiao, are you listening to me?" Shen Miao put down the bowl and she had just swallowed a big mouthful of 10 provinces fragrance. The fragrance of the wine was sweet, but when it entered her throat, it was so spicy that tears almost came out. As soon as she swallowed it, she felt warm and refreshed. She exclaimed in admiration, "It's worthy of being called the 10 prefectures fragrance." Xie Jingxing said, "Are you ignoring me now?" Shen Miao glanced at him, "You are not drinking." Then she picked up the bowl and drank another mouthful. Xie Jingxing said, "Hey, are you going to be a drunkard here tonight and drink till you are dead drunk? The 10 prefectures fragrance should not be drunk like you. You are like a cow chewing on peonies." Shen Miao glanced at him, "No one dared to say that I am a cow chewing on peonies." Xie Jingxing, he always felt that every time Shen Miao finished drinking, she would be like a different person. For example, many years ago when the Shen family left the Ding capital and he headed to the northern Jiang. Could it be that there was a person living in Shen Miao's stomach, and as long as she drank, that person would be released? Xie Jingxing was really puzzled after much thought. Normally she looked like a restrained and cautious person, but once drunk, not to mention that she would not be rational, she would do unimaginable things. Chapter 1008. One felt that the heroic spirit of the Shen family could only be reflected in Shen Miao after she had drunk wine. The reason why 10 provinces incense was called 10 provinces incense was because it was mellow, and the more mellow it was, the stronger it was. Shen Miao handed that big bowl of wine to Xie Jingxing and said, "You also drink." Xie Jingxing looked at her inexplicably, but Shen Miao stubbornly stretched out her hand. He could only sit down in front of the table and took that night's wine before slowly sipping it. Shen Miao looked at him. When Xie Jingxing drank, he was indeed not like a cow chewing on peonies like her, but he was also not genteel and careful, but had a kind of unrestrained heroism. As she watched, she picked up the bowl and gulped it down in one go. Xie Jingxing only drank a few mouthfuls when he saw Shen Miao turning the bowl upside down and wiping her mouth, just like how Shen Xian was drinking with the soldiers in the tent. He said, "You have finished drinking." Shen Miao lightly coughed twice. "I have something to tell you." Xie Jingxing swept a glance at her and then looked at the bright amber wine in his bowl. "You need to drink before you dare to speak to me. Did you make a mistake behind my back? Previously did you not ask me what is my secret?" Shen Miao said, "There is no need to use your secret to exchange. I will tell you." Xie Jingxing's action of holding the wine bowl paused and looked up at her. "Do you want to hear?" she still asked him. Xie Jingxing put down the wine bowl and said, "Why do I hear that you want to set a trap for me? Then I will take it that you want to know and I will tell you." Shen Miao ignored his words and spoke on her own. "Do you feel that ever since you knew me, it was very strange? The things that I said to Su Ming Lang and also the matter with Prince Yu. It seemed that the existence of the Feng Xian pawnshop was long known, and also the second and third household of the Shen family. You still find it strange why I always targeted Prince Ding. It was obvious that before that I was in love with Prince Ding, so it is not justifiable if love turned into hatred." One by one, she said all the things that Xie Jingxing was suspicious of. Shen Miao said, "In the beginning, you must have been wary of me, so you ordered people to investigate me in private." Xie Jingxing's face showed some uneasiness. Obviously, it was like what Shen Miao said, he had ordered people to investigate Shen Miao's background. "You must not have found out anything. You still think that there is someone with great means behind me. Or perhaps it is because there is someone behind the Shen family." Xie Jingxing was silent. Ji Yushu's Feng Xian pawnshop was able to find out many unknown secrets, but to Shen Miao, it was like a stone without an exit, and no matter how one tried, one could not find any place to start. "Although you can't find out anything about me, you must have investigated everything I've experienced over the years. You should also know that before my father and mother returned to the Ding capital at the end of the 68th year of Ming Qi, I once fell into the water because of Prince Ding. Ever since I fell into the water, my personality seemed to have changed a little. For example, I used to be infatuated with Prince Ding, but after that, I no longer showed any feelings towards Prince Ding." A hint of displeasure flashed across Xie Jingxing's eyes. Regarding the matter of Shen Miao being in love with Fu Xiuyi, it really puzzled him. If it was not that the entire city knew about it, he would almost think that it was Shen Miao's act. In terms of looks, talent or status, even though Fu Xiuyi was outstanding, he was not at the top of the world. Shen Miao could actually love Fu Xiuyi to the point of being infatuated, which made him speechless and also made him feel somewhat humiliated. No matter what, to compare him with Fu Xiuyi, that kind of hypocritical fellow, it really made him lower his value. Chapter 1009. After that time I fell into the water. I started to feel estranged from the second and third household of the Shen family and was not as friendly to Shen Qing and Shen Yu as before, to the extent that I would go against old Shen Furen. Shen Miao said, "Do you find it strange?" Xie Jingxing said, "There will always be a time when one is awake." Previously Shen Miao was confused, but that was because she was young, and when she was confused to a certain point, perhaps one would know the truth from a certain matter or something else, thus one could grow up overnight. Just like himself. Shen Miao shook her head, "Then I was too thoroughly awake. Actually it is very simple. I fell into the water in the 68th year of Ming Qi and was lying on the sick bed unable to wake up for a long time. I had a very long dream." She looked at the flickering light on the table and her eyes gradually had a misty look. "That dream was very long and serious, as if I had personally experienced it." "Can you believe that kind of dream?" Shen Miao smiled. "It was like a prophecy." Xie Jingxing gradually frowned and his gaze on Shen Miao became sharp. It was rumored that there was once a governor of the southern country who was sitting under a tree and dozed off. He dreamt that he was an emperor, and from being surrounded by flowers to dying in the mud, he lived a long life. When he suddenly woke up, he discovered that it was only for a moment and that everything in that dream was just a golden millet dream. It was just that it was real, thus one could not differentiate if that dream was real or if reality was real. This dream of mine was even longer and more bitter than the governor of the southern country in the story. "I dreamt of the future," she said. "I dreamt that I finally married into the residence of Prince Ding and the Shen family was tied together with the residence of Prince Ding. I dreamt that there would be disputes in the court, turmoil among the princes, and princes would fight for the throne, and at the end Fu Xiaoyi would be the winner. He ascended the throne and I would be the Empress, being the mother of the world, and it was very glorious." Xie Jingxing's eyebrows raised. "You most likely think that this is a beautiful dream of mine because I was infatuated with Fu Xiaoyi, so the dream had such a happy ending. I also hope that this is a beautiful dream, but it was the most terrible nightmare that I have ever had in my life. I gave birth to a son and a daughter, and they were the most sensible and adorable children in the world. Afterwards the great Liang's power became stronger and there were foreign invasions in Ming Qi. Ming Qi borrowed troops from the Qin country, and the Qin country used me as a hostage to stay in the Qin country for 5 years. I met Huangfu Hao and Ming, and Xie Jingxing's expression gradually became serious. "I don't like the royal family of the Qin kingdom. They always humiliate me. They invented a kind of shooting on foot. They let me hold a fruit on my head, but they always deliberately miss. Afterwards, I secretly practiced archery, but no matter how well I practiced, I couldn't hit them the next day. 5 years passed quickly and I returned to Ming Qi. There is an additional favored concubine in the Ding capital palace, called Mei Furen. She gave birth to a son called Fu Xing. Fu Xiaoyi dotes on Mei Furen and dotes on Fu Xing. I was left out in the cold. Even though I was the empress, I was laughed at in secret. Fu Xiaoyi started to attack the Shen family, and even though I am anxious, I am unable to interfere in politics. My eldest brother's career was ruined because he tarnished Jing Chu-Chu's innocence and was imprisoned because of murder. Finally he became disabled and drowned in the pond. My mother's illness worsened because of Zhang Ziqing and died of depression. My father was getting old day by day. His military power was taken away, and he drank all day. The second and third household rose up step by step and gained more power. Mei Furen and I fought in the inner palace, and no one could spare the other. It was not that I coveted the position of Empress, but if I could not even keep this position, I would not be able to keep my own children. At the end I was defeated and the Shen family perished. Wan Yu died of illness on the way to the Xiongnu, and Fu Ming also committed suicide after he was deposed from the crown prince position. I was given a white silk in the cold palace and the eunuchs personally strangled me to death. I opened my eyes and found myself lying on the bed. It turned out that I had a very long nightmare. Chapter 10:10. She lightly narrated this shocking dream, but there was a smile on her face. This smile was somewhat misty, as if it contained endless suffering, but the suffering could not be spoken out, so one might as well use a smile to replace it. Xie Jingxing did not speak. After she was drunk, she would always call herself Ben Gong, and Xie Jingxing would always laugh at her young age for scheming so deep. Occasionally he would also feel strange as to why in her dreams, she would always be a neglected and crippled empress. So it was, Shen Miao said, do you believe in this dream of mine? Xie Jingxing asked back, do you believe? Shen Miao laughed, if I do not believe, one fear that standing in front of you today would only be a grave. After I woke up, I was afraid that everything in this dream would happen and lived according to the rules, trying to find some clues to prove that it was just a nightmare. However, the more seriously I pursued, the more I discovered that it was not just a dream. Those things in the dream were happening one by one. I reminded Su Ming Lang because the Su family would be destroyed not long after because of the emperor's fear. Everyone in the Su family would be beheaded and only you went to collect the corpses of the father and son. After the Su family, it would be the Shen family's turn. I was only trying to protect myself, so I went to remind the Su family but did not want to be discovered by you. At that time Xie Jingxing had doubts about her because of Su Ming Lang's words and repeatedly probed. Both of them clashed many times but were unable to understand each other's thoughts. Then in that dream of yours, what was my ending? Xie Jingxing stared at her and asked. Shen Miao said, you are very good. The Xie family gradually declined and the Marquis of Lineage died in battle. You replaced your father to fight again, and one heard that you were buried on the battlefield, but after many years, you returned to Ming Qi with the identity of Prince Rui. Shen Miao smiled gently. Then you led the troops and horses to overthrow the imperial power. Xie Jingxing frowned, just like that. Just like that. Shen Miao nodded her head. Like that. He raised his eyebrows. I thought that in your dream, you and I would have some involvement. You're treating it as a dream, aren't you? Or perhaps they thought that I was drunk and was talking nonsense. Shen Miao's eyes dimmed and said, but this is also very good. I would rather it was just a dream. You may not believe some things when I say it, but I did indeed dream of Jing Chu Chu, Chang Zhao Qing and the rest. I had never seen them before. Because of the nightmare, I had been wary of them even before that. Now that I think about it, a lot of things were only possible because of that dream. Xie Jingxing looked at her and smiled. That smile was gentle and comforting. You did very well. Let bygones be bygones. In any case, I tried my best to avoid the ending of the dream. But one thing is, the two children in the dream are gone. Xie Jingxing's fingers that were rubbing the wine bowl paused for a moment before saying, we will also have children. Shen Miao took a deep breath and looked at him. Now you have to listen clearly to what I am going to say. In that dream, Mei Furen, who fought with me for a lifetime, the consort mother of the new crown prince, and finally the woman who almost controlled the court's politics, was called Li Mei. She was the daughter of an official that Fu Xiu-yi met during the Eastern expedition. She was gentle and charming and good at reading people's hearts. Now I see her again. Do you find it strange that when you came out from the imperial hunting grounds, I treated you coldly after I woke up because at that time I was very flustered? I saw Li Mei again. She is now called Yi Mei. Do you understand what I mean by saying it like this? She asked. Xie Jingxing did not speak for a long time. One did not know how much time had passed before he looked at Shen Miao. She is the enemy in your dream. I hated her to the bones for my entire life but was unable to kill the enemy with my own hands. Meeting again in this lifetime, she had become the daughter that the Long Yi family had found. Xie Jingxing, I can endure my hatred, but there is one point. Yi Mei is not a good person, and for power, she can climb up by hook or by crook. She would not do unnecessary things. Since the residents of Prince Rui had accepted her kindness, it would definitely become a knife in her hands. You have to be wary of her. Xie Jingxing picked up the wine bowl again and drank all the wine in one gulp. Even though he was smiling, there was coldness in his eyes. Yi Mei. Fu Xiuyi's gaze towards females is as vulgar as always. I am different from him. No matter if your dream is real or not. Xie Jingxing said, the hatred in the dream is also considered as hatred. Just based on the fact that he betrayed your intentions, it is unforgivable. Leave your hatred to me. I will help you take revenge. He interrupted the words that Shen Miao was about to say. Do not say that you want to kill the enemy with your own hands. You are my woman and your hatred is my hatred. In this world, the number of enemies that you and I have is uncountable and there is no distinction between you and me. If one day you were to meet my enemy and you want to help me take revenge, then consider it as even. Shen Miao frowned. Do you have enemies? Who is it? Xie Jingxing looked at her for a while and suddenly reached out to rub her head. Why do you believe everything that is said? So cute. Presumptuous. Shen Miao said. When she was drunk, she habitually brought out the majesty of an empress. Xie Jingxing's actions paused and Shen Miao was also surprised for a moment. He stared at Shen Miao. Do you still want to be an empress? I do not want to have that kind of dream a second time. Shen Miao said, I also do not want to be that kind of empress a second time. She said. Chapter 10-11. More than half of that jar of 10 prefecture spring ended up in Shen Miao's stomach. Xie Jingxing tried to stop it but every time Shen Miao was stubborn, even Shen Xian was helpless, not to mention Xie Jingxing. But this time she did not throw a drunken tantrum like before. After she finished the wine, her expression was very calm and after saying a lot of words, she carried an empty wine jar and staggered out. Xie Jingxing sent her back to the room and instructed Jing Zhiguyu to take good care of her. Jing Zhiguyu jumped in shock and said softly, the body had just recovered and why did one drink so much wine? One fear that it is not good for the injury. Xie Jingxing glanced at her before turning to leave the room. As he walked in the courtyard, the summer breeze blew on his face and sobered up a little. But he originally drank very little and at this moment his mind was as clear as a mirror. In fact it was not as calm as it looked on the surface. Shen Miao's words were like a thunderbolt striking his heart and in that instant, some things that were puzzling in the past became clear. But Shen Miao's words were too shocking and almost had the title of supernatural powers. He had never believed in ghosts and deities. He did not believe in ghosts and deities but believed in Shen Miao. Xie Jingxing was very clear about Shen Miao as a person. If one really wanted to deceive a person, naturally one would be full of lies with a calm expression. Ever since Xie Jingxing got to know Shen Miao and Ming Qi, he saw how she dealt with the second and third household of the Shen family. Towards Zhang Ziqing and towards Jing Chu, she would always smile and give people a stab. She would scheme in her heart but her face would always be warm and amiable. However, when she was hesitant, it was instead true. The words that she said today had been suppressed in her heart for a long time, else she would not reveal such a relieved expression after saying it. But Xie Jingxing could roughly feel the apprehension in her heart, so he maintained a calm appearance even though his heart was already in a stormy sea. If the things in Shen Miao's dream really happened, then it would really not be a happy dream. Once he thought that Shen Miao ended up following Fu Xiuyi and even ended up in such a miserable state because of Fu Xiuyi, Xie Jingxing could not restrain his anger. It had rained the day before yesterday and when the green boots stepped on the puddles on the ground, there was a rustling sound. Xie Jingxing stood still and said, Tai Yi. Tai Yi appeared in response. Check if Yi Mei's siblings have any connection with Ming Qi. He said. If everything in Shen Miao's dream was true, then this Yimei was Shen Miao's enemy, but from Ming Qi to the Great Liang, this point did not match up. It was just that now thinking about it, why did Shen Miao show such hostility towards Yimei and her brother the first time they met? Now one could understand. Tai Yi was a little surprised, but he still lowered his head and agreed. His thoughts were a mess. He frowned and looked at the crescent moon in the sky. He couldn't tell what he was feeling, so he went back to the courtyard to play with the tiger cub. Jiao Jiao had not seen her master for a long time, and when she saw him coming, she was overjoyed and jumped up to play with him. Xie Jingxing absent-mindedly played with the tiger cub for a while, and when he saw that it was getting late and the tiger cub started to doze off, he then returned to the house. But he was still not sleepy. He walked to the middle of the room, took off his robe, and was about to sit for a while when he suddenly felt something strange. Raising his eyes to look at the bed, he saw that there was a big bump on the bed and there seemed to be shallow breathing sounds. He frowned and walked over to lift the quilt. Suddenly he was startled and then said in amusement, "What are you doing?" On the bed, Shen Miao was wrapped in his quilt and hugging a pillow in her arms as she stared at him. Previously, she had been calm, as if she had not been drunk at all. Now that she had finally regained her senses, the alcohol had gotten to her head. Her fair face had turned bright red, and her pair of clear eyes were finally covered with a layer of water. She said, "I am offering myself as a pillow." Chapter 10-12. Xie Jingxing almost thought that he had heard wrongly and said, "What did you say?" Consort Li once told me that if one wants to obtain a person's heart or admire a person, one must recommend oneself to sleep on the bed. Between males and females, the pleasure of fish and water is a matter of course. I have never enjoyed before, and I think that you also have not, so I came to recommend myself to sleep on the bed. When Xie Jingxing heard her shocking words, his face flushed red and he stared at Shen Miao, as if he did not know how to react. Finally he said, "What nonsense are you saying?" He did not know who the consort Li that she was talking about was, but thinking about the dream that Shen Miao had, Xie Jingxing thought incredulously that it could not be one of her sisters in the inner palace. Shen Miao sat on the couch and was drunk, but she still had to put on a dignified air and said, "I want to discuss with you." Xie Jingxing quickly walked to the table and poured a cup of herbal tea for himself. After drinking a mouthful of the herbal tea, the depression in his heart was slightly appeased. Shen Miao's completely different temperament when she was drunk was really unbearable. But to be able to say the words pleasure of fish and water, what was she thinking? He said, "I am not a person who takes advantage of others." After a long time, he did not hear any movements. Xie Jingxing felt that it was somewhat strange and could not help but turn back to take a look, but he spat out a mouthful of tea. Shen Miao was rather clever, and one did not know why her outer robe was gone and she was wearing a dudu. She said aggrievedly, "Do you think that I am ugly? So you are not willing to touch me?" That large piece of skin was like the white snow in winter but was more moist than the white snow. It was like milk but was more sparkling than milk. In addition to her disheveled hair, it made her cute little face and hazy eyes. It was really a feast for the eyes. Xie Jingxing quickly went over and covered her with a blanket in a flurry. "You are really very sick." Shen Miao said plausibly, "You and I are husband and wife. What is wrong with a consummation?" Xie Jingxing took a deep breath and avoided the other's misty eyes. "Your injuries are not completely healed. Let's talk about it another day." Shen Miao was puzzled. "Did you not say 2 months later?" "I saw that the date has long arrived." Xie Jingxing almost collapsed. He emphasized, "I'm not someone who takes advantage of others." "What kind of person do you think I am?" "I know." Shen Miao nodded her head. "I am here to fulfill your wish." Xie Jingxing, be good. It's too late now. Let's talk about it another day. Xie Jingxing tucked her in and turned to leave. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he would not be able to hold it in. At the end of the day, he was a hot-blooded young man who was in the prime of his life. With a beauty in his arms, and a beloved woman at that, it would be strange if he did not have any reaction. But he did not want to take advantage of Shen Miao when she was drunk. He respected Shen Miao, so he was not willing to use such a method. But just as he stood up, his sleeve was pulled by Shen Miao and the blanket that he had just tucked in slid down. Shen Miao simply half knelt on the couch but was a head shorter than Xie Jingxing. She was a little anxious and hugged Xie Jingxing's neck. No. Xie Jingxing, with a soft and fragrant jade in his arms, he could almost feel the other party's exquisite and delicate body. There was a faint female fragrance coming from Shen Miao's body. He obviously did not drink a lot of wine, but at this moment he felt that his entire body was hot, as if the strong alcohol had gone to his head and his rationality was gradually fading. It is today. After today, I will regret it. She said in all seriousness, but one did not know if she was really drunk or pretending to be drunk. Chapter 10:13. When Xie Jingxing heard it, he paused his action of pushing her down and glanced at her. Renege? Shen Miao seemed to feel a little dizzy. This kind of kneeling posture made her somewhat uncomfortable, so she shook her head and looked at Xie Jingxing carefully before her lips hooked up into a smile. She said, "Bengong feel that you are very beautiful and it is your fortune to fancy you. Is it not good to follow Bengong?" Xie Jingxing, here it comes again. Here it comes again. Xie Jingxing vaguely remembered a few years ago in the manner when Shen Miao was drunk and treated him as Xiao Yu, and forcefully kissed him. Now that time had passed, and this scene in front of him was unusually familiar. His voice suddenly carried a tinge of danger. "Follow you." Shen Miao nodded her head and moved closer to his ear to speak mysteriously, "Ensure that you will be rich and glorious for a lifetime." Xie Jingxing laughed. In fact, in Shen Miao's drunken state, there was a bit of naivety that only a young female would have, like an unripened fruit. It could not be said to be amorous, and the words she spoke simply made one speechless. But her every move was a fatal seduction to him. The seductive eyes of those peerless beauties could not compare to her naive hug. "If you are not willing, Bengong will go and find other people. If you miss Bengong, you will regret it for the rest of your life." Shen Miao threatened him. Xie Jingxing said, "Still want to find other people?" And he suddenly fell forward. Shen Miao was originally holding on to his neck, but now she was pressed down by his body. Xie Jingxing smiled gently and leaned over to her ear to whisper, "You, this Empress, are really arrogant. Want me to serve you and still think of other men? I am not very happy. Do you want to be punished?" Shen Miao struggled to free a hand and took out a booklet-like thing from under the bed and looked at him with bright eyes. "Look at this." Xie Jingxing was surprised for a moment and took a look. His expression instantly became very interesting and his tone was restrained as he said, "Where did you get this from?" Shen Miao's neck shrank. "Mother gave it to me. I have said before that I want to discuss with you." Xie Jingxing was startled for a moment before gently smiling. "Discuss." Shen Miao's head nodded like a chicken pecking rice. "This subject will naturally serve your highness until your body and mind are comfortable." He spoke meaningfully, but his eyes suddenly became as dangerous as a wolf's. He asked, "Empress, will you really not regret it?" "You'll regret it for the rest of your life if you miss this consort," she muttered. Xie Jingxing did not speak anymore, and with a wave of his sleeves, the candle in the room was extinguished. His deep voice came from the darkness. "You're right. If I missed you, I would regret it for the rest of my life." The sun was high up in the sky. Even with the shade of the trees, the summer sun still managed to shine through the gaps between the branches and leaves and onto the ground, reflecting a small patch of golden mottled light. Birds were chirping on the branches. Their cool chirps were filled with joy. Shen Miao felt a splitting headache and subconsciously turned over but felt that there seemed to be something blocking in front of her. He opened his eyes in a daze and was immediately stunned. She lay in the man's arms, her hands still tightly wrapped around his waist. As he looked up, he saw a handsome face with a pair of peach blossom eyes that seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. It was a smile that contained the smile of a sales promotion. Shen Miao's heart exploded. What happened last night? How come she did not remember anything? She subconsciously wanted to sit up but felt that her entire body was sore. It was so painful that she sucked in a breath of cold air. The quilt that was tucked around her naturally slid down, revealing some obvious traces. Chapter 10:14. Shen Miao, ? The clothes were scattered on the floor and the wine bowls were piled up on the table, filling the room with a gentle atmosphere. No matter how slow she was, she would be able to guess what had happened. Awake? Xie Jingxing raised his brows. Shen Miao tried her best to restore her calm expression, but no matter how she pretended, there was a hint of panic. When this panic fell into Xie Jingxing's eyes, it made him not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "You were very brave last night. Why are you afraid now?" Shen Miao's heart quivered. Once she was drunk, she would not remember anything and her memory was clearer than a piece of white paper. The memories before she was drunk were still at the time when she was talking about the past with Xie Jingxing. Because she thought about it, she felt that it was the easiest to believe it when she explained it with a dream. Otherwise, for no reason, no matter how real it was, to say that one was resurrected from the dead, it would be ridiculous. She drank some wine to boost her courage and remembered that Xie Jingxing seemed to believe her words and did not have any other feelings towards her. But why did they sleep on the same bed? Xie Jingxing swept a glance at her confused look and said leisurely, "Do you know what you did last night?" Shen Miao did not dare to look at him and looked at the bedding calmly. "What else can I do?" "Sleep. You slept with me." Xie Jingxing said, "Want me to serve you well?" Shen Miao almost choked on her own saliva. That was her. The elegant and virtuous Empress Shen who sat in the 6 palaces. Xie Jingxing must be lying to her. How could there be such a shameless and promiscuous matter? Xie Jingxing said, "You said that if I follow you, you will carry me for a lifetime of glory and riches and have a limitless future." Shen Miao said, "There is no need to take drunk words seriously." Moreover, she changed the topic, "How do I know if you are lying to me? It is impossible for me to say such words." She might as well turn hostile. Xie Jingxing was not in a hurry and calmly took out a booklet-like thing from under the pillow and flipped through it before saying, "Yes, you also took the thing that your mother gave you and wanted to discuss it with me so that I can dispel your doubts. Do you still remember?" He swept the booklet in front of Shen Miao. Shen Miao only took a glance, but when she saw it clearly, she wanted to vomit blood in her heart. Could it be? All of these were available. This was given to her by Luo Shuiyan before she got married. It taught her, the secrets of the boudoir. This thing was kept by her, so it was impossible for Xie Jingxing to find it. In other words, she must have taken the initiative to dig it out and give it to Xie Jingxing. Then what else did she do to Xie Jingxing before? Did she really want Xie Jingxing to serve her well? Shen Miao felt that it was nothing more than being struck by lightning. Xie Jingxing seemed to think that she was not embarrassed enough and lightly said, "Last night, you dragged me to discuss it and I only managed to discuss the first few pages. I thought that there is no need to be impatient for a long time, but you are so thirsty for talents. I must try this extremely difficult position. Stop. Shen Miao quickly interrupted his words, but her face was already red from embarrassment as she said, drinking is a hindrance, you don't know how to stop me. How would I dare? Xie Jingxing made an expression of being wronged. If I do not agree, you will chop off my head. Shen Miao, she felt that it was really too embarrassing. Thinking of her coyly seducing Xie Jingxing. Perhaps all the face that she had accumulated in both her previous lifetimes would be thrown away cleanly. Xie Jingxing however seemed to be in a very good mood as he looked at her with a smile. You still told me that you still want to discuss it tonight. It is not necessary for tonight. Shen Miao quickly interrupted his words and wanted to jump out of the bed to run out. But she was pulled back by Xie Jingxing and was pulled into his embrace. He looked down at Shen Miao and the lazy smile on his face disappeared and was replaced with a serious expression. Chapter 10-15. He frowned and asked, you regret it? Shen Miao was startled. Xie Jingxing's eyes were extremely good-looking and sometimes Shen Miao would find it strange. For a grown man, why did his eyes look so good? It was as if there was infinite affection, so when they were in Ming Qi's Ding capital, there was always a lingering affection. However, he himself was indifferent. This kind of man was too dangerous, so one must not provoke him. Falling in love with this kind of man was definitely a calamity for a female, but to be loved by this kind of man, it was probably the fortune of a lifetime. He understood respect and had selfish motives, but was also overbearing and adorable. At this moment he was staring at Shen Miao seriously. In that naturally arrogant and haughty gaze, there was some cautiousness, and that cautiousness would make one feel that one was placed on the ladder by him, was protected by him from harm, and was the most important person to him. Shen Miao's gaze landed on the red line on Xie Jingxing's hand. He said that he disliked it, but at the end he did not take it off. Shen Miao raised her head and said honestly, no regrets. She only felt a little shy. Xie Jingxing's eyes brightened up. She said, since it is done, what is there to regret? It is not like it was done by others. At the end she was still avoiding Xie Jingxing's gaze. Xie Jingxing pulled her head over and forced her to look at him. Really? Shen Miao said, really? Xie Jingxing stared at her for a long time and Shen Miao felt more embarrassed. She wanted to run but was pulled over by Xie Jingxing. Let me see. See what? Last night you refused to stop no matter what, and I did not have time to look at your wound. Even though it is a superficial wound, one must look carefully. He pulled Shen Miao into his embrace. Shen Miao saw that he was only wearing his inner clothes and revealed a large part of his chest, and felt her face burning as she rejected, no. No need. I will do it myself. That cannot be done. As Xie Jingxing spoke, he pulled her onto his body again. Shen Miao was unable to escape anymore. Outside, Jingzhe and Guyu were sweeping the floor while pricking up their ears to listen to the movements inside. However, both of them did not have any martial arts skills, and with the doors separating them, they were unable to hear anything. Song Yang squatted in front of the door, playing with the birds in the birdcage as he said, you two have been sweeping here for 2 hours. If you keep sweeping, the stone slabs at the door will be swept through. Jingzhe and Guyu were surprised for a moment and stopped what they were doing. Jingzhe looked at Song Yang and wanted to ask but felt that this question was too difficult to ask, so her face turned red and refused to speak. Song Yang, on the other hand, was much more thick-skinned than her. With one look, he knew what she wanted to ask. He waved his hand and said, don't worry, everything went smoothly. Even though Jingzhe and Guyu were shy, they still gave a sigh of relief at the same time. Jingzhe threw a proud look at Guyu, but Guyu only gave her a rebuking look. Shen Miao was drunk last night, and when Jingzhe and Gu Yu were tidying up the room, they coincidentally took away the booklet that Luo Shuaiyan gave Shen Miao. Shen Miao asked what was that booklet, and Jingzhe suddenly had an idea. She thought that every time Shen Miao was drunk, she did not know what she had done and had the intention to matchmake her own mistress and Xie Jingxing. At the beginning, when Shen Miao was married, Luo Shuaiyan had repeatedly exhorted that these two maids must always admonish Shen Miao. In the end, after being married for so long, they did not even consummate the marriage. Seeing that both of them had a good relationship, Jingzhe thought that it was not that her own young lady did not understand, but this Prince Rui was also ignorant. The abbot in the dream said, sacrificing one's life, that chance to do it again was only a possibility, and perhaps it would be in vain. That abbot also said, if he could do it again, some opportunities would be disrupted and perhaps he would be in pain because of it. Pei Lang also agreed. He once loved a female, but his love was no different from Fu Xiuyi's coldness. They were both pushing Shen Miao to a dead end step by step. He sympathized with Shen Miao, but at the same time rationally weighed the pros and cons and abandoned Shen Miao. In one's life, it was actually living by constantly abandoning things. He and Fu Xiuyi had abandoned Shen Miao, so in this lifetime, Shen Miao also abandoned them without any hesitation. Unfortunately, it was Xie Jingxing who was lucky. But after thinking about it, it was also expected. But after knowing so much of the cause and effect, he no longer had the face to face Shen Miao. He said that he would accompany and help her, but now thinking about it, it was only because of the guilt from the previous lifetime and he was repaying it. But he was unable to face his own heart. The complicated entanglement of this marriage caused his heart to be in a mess. It was time to end this mistake. Some thoughts should not have been born from the beginning. Once they were born, it was a mistake. Now, it was time for him to cut them off. Fenxiang said, young Master Pei, drink some porridge first. Your body still needs to recuperate. Later young Master Gao will come and perform acupuncture on you. As long as you wake up and recuperate for a few days, with young Master Gao's medical skills, you will be safe and sound. Pei Lang paused for a moment before saying, many thanks. Young Master Pei is too polite. Fenxiang said, you saved Furen's life and are the benefactor of the residence of the Prince of First Rank. Trouble you to bring me a pen and paper. Pei Lang said. His lips were pale and his eyes were dim, but his tone was very firm. Chapter 10:17. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing were reconciled and the entire Prince Rui residence seemed to heave a sigh of relief. What was a blessing in disguise was that not only did both of them reconcile, they also started to sleep in the same room. This was simply out of everyone's expectations, especially Uncle Tang, who was the happiest. Every day Xie Jingxing would boil tiger, deer and bull's penis soup, making Shen Miao speechless every time she saw it. Xie Jingxing began to investigate the Yi family's matters, but what was strange was that Yi Mei's siblings were indeed born and raised in the Great Liang and previously lived in Qin province, so there was no mistake about it. Shen Miao also did not know why it was so, but at the end she could only think that it was her rebirth that inadvertently changed a lot of things. For example, Fu Xiuyi's luck, or the identity of Mei Furen siblings. But no matter how much it changed, there was one thing that would not change. Yi Mei was her enemy in the past life, and in this life she entered the Yi family, so the position of their sworn enemy did not change at all. Pei Lang's injuries also gradually got better. Shen Miao went to take a look once but did not enter the room. She only looked from afar, and when she saw that he was able to get down and drink his medicine, she then left. Towards Pei Lang, Shen Miao's feelings were very complicated, but most likely Pei Lang did not know about the matters of the past life. Even though she knew about the matters of the past life, she was unable to face the other party with a peaceful mind. Thus she could only maintain this kind of distance. Xie Jingxing however was very satisfied with this and said that she was more sensible than in the past and used this opportunity to reward her. It was as if he wanted to make up for all the rooms that he did not consummate, making Shen Miao unable to lift her spirits these few days, as if a male ghost was plucking her yin to nourish her yang. The situation in Longyi looked stable, but the whirlpool of disputes was not what others could imagine. After the imperial hunt that Emperor Yonglu had set up, he started to close the net that was previously set up to deal with the Lu family. The Lu family was busy dealing with the imperial family and Xie Jingxing was also busier. Naturally Shen Miao would not be relaxed because there was a letter from Ming Qi's side. Luo Shuiyan's letter to Shen Miao had arrived. There were 2 letters to home. One was from Luo Shuiyan, saying that everything was fine with them and also exhorted Shen Miao to not swallow any grievances in Longyi and to write back to tell them. Then he carefully exhorted to treat Xie Jingxing with respect, to support and understand each other. Forget it, he just wanted to ask about the situation at Shen Miao's end. The other letter was written by Shen Qiu. Shen Qiu's letter was different from Luo Shuiyan's. At the beginning when Shen Miao was married, she had talked to Shen Qiu about some things. Even though it was not clear, it hinted to Shen Qiu to be wary of the imperial family of Ming Qi. The imperial family of Ming Qi was a pot of mud and what the Shen family had to do was to be wise and protect themselves. No matter what method they used, they had to draw a clear relationship with the imperial family, otherwise they could only be dragged into the mud. If it was necessary, even if they had to abandon the Shen family's integrity, they must first preserve their lives. This time in Shen Qiu's letter, he talked about the situation in Ming Qi. Counting it, Shen Miao had left the Ding capital for more than half a year. The situation in the Ding capital was already on the verge of breaking out and there would be changes every day, not to mention in half a year. However, the sudden change caught everyone off guard. Emperor Wenhui was seriously ill. First was his cough and then his condition worsened and now it was to the point where he could not attend court. Occasionally when he attended court, he was listless and would disperse after listening to a few sentences. One did not know why there were rumors in the palace that Emperor Wenhui was like a dried-up oil lamp and would not be able to last more than a year before he would not be able to live. When Shen Miao saw this line of words, she only laughed. How long could Emperor Wenhui live for? Was it really just 1 year? Shen Miao did not believe it, as in the previous lifetime Emperor Wenhui did not die so early. Of course it was hard to say if there was anything fishy about Emperor Wenhui's death. The imperial family of Ming Qi was intricate and complicated and the princes were not as simple as Long Ye's side. If one person ascended the throne, there would be a lot of sacrifices, so what was one imperial father? Chapter 10:18. Shen Qiu mentioned in the letter that Emperor Wenhui was seriously ill, but one did not know why he made things difficult for his most favored consort Su Xian. Consort Su Xian was demoted to a talented person, and not only that, the entire Su family was also implicated by Emperor Wenhui, implicating the 2 brothers, Prince Zhou and Prince Jing. These 2 brothers could no longer manage the matters in court and Shen Qiu did not understand the specific situation. In short, Consort Su Xian, Prince Zhou and Prince Jing had all fallen out of favor. Prince Zhou and Prince Jing seemed to have fallen into a disadvantageous position in the fight for the throne. Whereas Prince Li's faction was unprecedentedly on good terms with Prince Ding. Prince Li's faction was also a powerful faction in the fight for the throne, and Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi, had no relationship with them at all, but now they were on good terms. Thinking about it, it was not right. What made one even more suspicious was that in this faction, the original Prince Li actually had the intention to follow Prince Ding's lead. When writing till here, Shen Qiu's handwriting was somewhat sloppy and it was obvious that his mood was not calm. Forget it, he then summed it up. Most probably in the current Ding capital, among the original princes, the hottest one was the 9th prince, Fu Xiuyi, who had no desires. And Fu Xiuyi's consort mother, Consort Dong Shu, had become Emperor Wen Hui's support. When Emperor Wen Hui was seriously ill, the person he doted on was the person closest to him. Some people guessed that looking at this trend, the crown prince would eventually be gone and Emperor Wen Hui would most likely pass the throne to Prince Ding, Fu Xiuyi. Thus a large wave of officials switched sides to Fu Xiuyi's side. No matter if it was because of his own reasons or external factors, no matter how one looked at it, Fu Xiuyi would become the future crown prince of Mingqi. And Fu Xiuyi gradually started to deal with the Shen family. The Shen family's military power had previously been taken back by Emperor Wen Hui, but Fu Xiuyi wanted to give Shen Xian new power, to let both father and son lead a brand new army. No matter how one looked at it, it was a pit. Fu Xiuyi had obviously dug a pit for the Shen family to jump into, and if one did not do well, they would fall into Fu Xiuyi's trap. Shen Qiu wrote in the letter that the Shen family was using Shen Xian's illness as an excuse to temporarily not take over the military power, but one did not know how long this excuse could be used because Fu Xiuyi would definitely not only use this one method to deal with the Shen family. But it was fortunate that the Shen family was not without help. Fu Xiuyi's target was the Feng family, which was Feng and Ning's residence. The Feng family and the Shen family had plans to join hands, and with some of the other officials of Mingqi, it should be enough to protect themselves. But in the end there was still some bewilderment in her words, as if she felt that the Shen family that had been loyal for a few generations, would now end up in a situation where the imperial family was in a confrontation and mutual suspicion. This inevitably made one sigh. After Shen Miao finished reading the letter, she folded it and kept it, feeling somewhat worried. Xie Jingxing took a look with her and seeing her worried look, he asked, "You are very worried?" Fu Xiuyi is starting to deal with the Shen family. Shen Miao said in a deep voice, "The speed of his rise is too fast. In less than a year, there is actually no one in the Ding capital who can contend with him. Prince Shou and Prince Jing were so arrogant in the beginning, but now even consort Su Xian has declined and Prince Li was also subdued by him." Shen Miao said, "His means are not simple." Even though she had long known that Fu Xiuyi was the emperor of Mingqi in his past lifetime, but in this lifetime there was no Shen family and he was still able to turn the situation around in a disadvantageous situation. This made Shen Miao feel that the arrangement of the Shen family was somewhat rash. Perhaps she had underestimated the enemy. It is not strange. Xie Jingxing smiled. In order to fight for the throne, he had been preparing for many years. Even though Prince Shou and Prince Jing had the advantage, they were slower than him. Not to mention Prince Li, without the support of his mother's family, they could not be compared. But why did he still target the Shen family? Shen Miao frowned. It is reasonable to say that since the Shen family's military power is gone, there would not be any threat to him. For example, the residence of the Marquis of Linan. He would not start to deal with the residence of the Marquis of Linan, but would not let go of the Shen family. Fu Xiuyi would not waste time on meaningless things. Towards the suppression of the Shen family, it was considered as a superfluous move, so why bother? Chapter 1019. Xie Jingxing pondered for a moment before saying, "Perhaps it is because of you." "Me?" Shen Miao looked at him. "You married to the great Liang and Fu Xiuyi previously suspected my relationship with you, suspecting that the great Liang was the backing of the Shen family. After returning to Longyi, I also ordered people to pay attention to Fu Xiuyi's movements and discovered that he was investigating everything about me in the residence of the Marquis of Linan. Perhaps he knew my identity. Perhaps they misunderstood the relationship between the Shen family and me, and thought that the Shen family had already defected to the great Liang, or had other plans. He paused before continuing. Fu Xiuyi's methods are ruthless and he has a suspicious nature. Once he senses that something is not right, he will definitely cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. As long as the Shen family makes him feel uneasy, he will spare no effort to eradicate them. I understand that. Shen Miao's eyes were slightly cold. Even at the end of the previous lifetime, did Fu Xiuyi not clean up the first household neatly because of the Shen family's military power? But you don't have to worry. Xie Jingxing pinched her face. I have arranged people in the Ding capital. No matter what, they have the ability to protect your family's safety. You have long-arranged people? Shen Miao asked, why not tell me earlier? Xie Jingxing said, is there a need to claim credit for this kind of matter? That is also my family. Without proper arrangements, how can I let them stay in the Ding capital? When Shen Miao heard Xie Jingxing say, that is also my family, her heart was as sweet as eating honey and there was a smile in her eyes as she said, speaking of which, I did not think that the Feng family would actually join hands with eldest brother. In the beginning, in order to prevent Feng and Ning from repeating the mistakes of the past lifetime, she also specially took care of Shen Qiu to help look after the Feng family, but one did not know when they had such a friendship. But from this, it seemed that Feng and Ning would not be like the previous lifetime, marrying that Biao older brother who was golden on the outside but rotten on the inside. But there is one thing that I wanted to tell you. Xie Jingxing's face suddenly became serious. Fu Xiuyi and the Emperor of Qin State have a secret relationship. Shen Miao was startled for a moment before asking, do you need to borrow troops? Speaking of this matter, Shen Miao recalled the time when she was a hostage in the Qin country for 5 years. Now that Fu Xiuyi did not have a wife, could it be that he was looking for other hostages? It could be possible that they had reached some private agreements, most likely to be ceding land. Xie Jingxing said. Shen Miao frowned, is it to help him fight for the throne? But borrowing the power of a foreign country to fight for the throne, there will be many implications in the future. Fu Xiuyi will not do this. Xie Jingxing's eyes sank and said, to deal with the Great Liang. Shen Miao looked at him. They want to deal with the Great Liang. That's crazy. Even though Ming Qi and the Qin country's combined strength was much higher than before, but the Great Liang's strength was placed in front of everyone, at least it would be a situation where both sides would suffer. They had lived in harmony for so many years, so why would they take the initiative to start a fight? This is not something that can be tolerated. Xie Jingxing laughed. Moreover, Long Yi is currently in chaos because of the Lu and Yi families. They will not let go of this opportunity. Shen Miao carefully thought about Xie Jingxing's words for a while and said, what you said is right, sooner or later there will be such a day. It was just that to start a war now, it might not be a good opportunity for the Great Liang. You don't have to worry. Xie Jingxing rubbed her head. Leave these to me. I am also the Wang Fei of the residence of Prince Rui. Shen Miao glared at him and was very dissatisfied with his words. Xie Jingxing looked at her unruffled. Oh, from an Empress to a Wang Fei, don't you find yourself at a disadvantage? The meal has already been eaten, so what is the point of saying these now? Shen Miao snorted. Xie Jingxing still wanted to speak, but Fennel Xiang knocked on the door and motioned her to come in. Fennel Xiang looked at Shen Miao and then looked at Xie Jingxing with a tangled expression. Xie Jingxing originally followed Shen Miao and casually swept a glance over that piece of paper, but when he saw the back, his expression could not help but become serious. This letter recorded everything about Fu Xiuyi in great detail. In this way, Fu Xiuyi seemed to have no secrets in front of them and everything was exposed. With this, to deal with Fu Xiuyi, it was like grabbing the snake's weak point, and every step was like a drill to the heart. Chapter 1021. Xie Jingxing said, how could he know so much? Even if Pei Lang was a spy by Fu Xiuyi's side and Fu Xiuyi trusted him previously, it was not possible for him to trust to this extent. And these chess pieces that Fu Xiuyi had hidden in various places were all written out by Pei Lang. It was as if he was a trusted general that had followed him for many years and knew his master's matters like the back of his hand. That was why he was so detailed. Shen Miao's fingertips were somewhat trembling. Some of the things in here clearly happened a few years later. Even now, Fu Xiuyi did not know those people, so how would Pei Lang know? Unless Pei Lang also had the memories of the past lifetime, thus he already knew about Fu Xiuyi's future, confidant and chess pieces, and future plans. When did Pei Lang know about it? It was obvious that he did not understand anything previously. Could it be? Shen Miao's heart moved. She was on Xie Jingxing's birthday and dreamt of the past lifetime because of the assassination. Could it be the same for Pei Lang? She looked at the fennel. What is different about Gentleman Pei these days? Different places. The fennel carefully replied, there seems to be no difference, just that he often sat there in a daze, not knowing what he was thinking about. But Gentleman Pei's character was quiet previously, so it should be during the period of recuperation. Shen Miao could not make up her mind and wanted to ask if Pei Lang knew about the matters of the past lifetime. Pei Lang was the person that followed Fu Xiuyi for the longest time, so naturally he understood Fu Xiuyi the deepest. But just as he wanted to speak, he stopped. So what about it? If Pei Lang really recalled the past lifetime, just like how Shen Miao was unable to face Pei Lang would also be unable to face her. The two of them were not considered as fated enemies, nor were they close friends. There was a blood debt that was personally paid off. Deep in the palace, one had no choice but to commit a mistake. One could not act as if nothing had happened, and one could not clearly explain it. Xie Jingxing saw her uncertain expression and asked, do you need me to order people to capture him back? Shen Miao recovered to her senses and said, no need. Since he wants to live his own life, then let him go. Meeting was better than not meeting, so it was good for Pei Lang to leave like this. She pinched that piece of paper and there was a hint of sternness in her eyes. When Xie Jingxing saw it, he said, it is written here, it's true. Shen Miao said, one have to hand this to eldest brother. We are not in the Ding capital and it would not be easy to move around with this. Leave it to big brother and father. Big brother and father will see to it. With this, at least the Shen family has another bargaining chip. After that, he was in a difficult position, but this thing is very valuable and must be sent back to Ming Qi. If it is robbed on the way, let the Mou army go. Xie Jingxing said indifferently, the Mou army had been sending letters for so many years and had never been intercepted before. Shen Miao's heart was slightly at ease, but before she could speak, Pei Lang's letter was taken away by Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing nonchalantly threw the letter away and said, it is too late. Rest. How is it late? Shen Miao said curiously, the sky just turned dark. Although we don't have to get Mr. Pei back, we have to ensure his safety. He was stabbed for no reason that day. If he gets targeted again. Before the words were finished, Shen Miao was already carried up by Xie Jingxing. He threw Shen Miao on the bed and leaned close to her before saying, try to care about Pei Lang again. Shen Miao, in the palace. In the imperial garden, the lotus flowers were in full bloom in the summer and the dark green lotus leaves almost covered the pond. Empress Xiando was sitting in the pavilion. Even though there was no moon today, there were stars. The cool breeze was blowing and the water was sparkling. It was a good scenery. She ordered people to brew scented tea and to drink a small cup in the summer. It was very comfortable. Chapter 1022. Tao Gugu stood behind her and smiled, commenting, "The lotus flowers are blooming well this year." Empress Xianda glanced and smiled, replying, "Last year, I had people change the seeds. This year, it is much more prosperous." She added, "The summer is also cool." Just as she spoke, she saw someone pass by from afar. She seemed to see Empress Xianda and the others. Her movements paused slightly, she turned and walked towards the pavilion. When she came closer, she saw clearly that this person wasn't anyone else but Jing Fei. Compared to Jing Fei's arrogant and domineering appearance in the past, Jing Fei looked much more disheveled today. Or maybe it shouldn't be said today. Recently, Jing Fei's condition hadn't been good. She didn't seem to be in the mood to take care of her clothing. Her usually beautiful face showed signs of tiredness. But when she saw Empress Xianda, the tiredness instantly turned to hatred. She said, "I saw someone here from afar and was wondering who was in such a good mood." It was the Empress. Empress Xianda smiled noncommittally and said, "Ben Gong is drinking tea here. Does Jing Fei want to drink a cup?" Jing Fei smiled coldly at her and said, "Jijia is in the mood to drink tea, but Mimi is not." Emperor Yonglu started to suppress the Lu family. The people in the Hogong didn't understand the court, but they could see the emperor's attitude. The concubine that had been the most favored now couldn't move the emperor even if she cried and begged. The meaning behind this was very deep. Ben Gong doesn't care if Jing Fei is in the mood or not. Empress Xianda smiled and continued to pour tea. "The tea will always be here." Jing Fei was so angry she was trembling. Lu Furen had come to the palace to find her and said that Emperor Yonglu had acted against the Lu family. She also said that she had Emperor Yongli's favor but couldn't even be moved by a pillow breeze. She wanted her to find out what Emperor Yonglu was thinking. If necessary, it was possible to ask for mercy. But Jing Fei did it, but it was useless. In reality, after so many years, Emperor Yonglu had pampered her. Even in this Hogong, Empress Xianda had to be courteous to her. No matter how arrogant she was, she would always be safe in the end. But she had never changed Emperor Yongli's mind. Sometimes, she felt that Emperor Yonglu seemed to have seen everything and knew that she was purposely trying to please him. Sometimes, Jing Fei felt slightly ashamed. But other times, she felt that Emperor Yonglu really did pamper her. Now that the Lu family was in trouble and needed her daughter's help, Jing Fei went to find Emperor Yonglu. Emperor Yongli's attitude was cold. Jing Fei's life had been smooth sailing and she had never suffered any hardship. When she entered the palace, with the Lu family's background, she easily rose to the position of a consort. Now that the Lu family was in trouble, she also suffered. She realized that in all these years, other than making a scene in the palace and making enemies, she had done nothing else. In contrast, Empress Xianda, who she had always looked down on, was sitting in the pavilion leisurely drinking tea. Jing Fei's heart was filled with anger. She thought, Emperor Yonglu did not love Empress Xianda, but Empress Xianda was respected by everyone because of her title as Empress. This was too unfair. If Empress Xianda was not in the way, she would have become the Empress. Emperor Yonglu would not dare to underestimate the Lu family. She would not have such a headache now. Hatred instantly formed in Jing Fei's heart. Coincidentally, she saw Empress Xianda sitting in the pavilion. The side of the pavilion near the lake had a flight of stairs. It was convenient to feed the fish. It was very elegant, but it was slightly dangerous. Jing Fei silently walked a few steps closer to Empress Xianda and said, "Jijia has brewed tea for so many years and naturally knows the principles of brewing tea. But Mimi does not like drinking tea. Tea is bitter and makes people uncomfortable. What is the point of brewing it?" Just as she finished speaking, she gave an "aye" and pretended to sprain her ankle as she leaned against Empress Xianda. Empress Xianda was sitting on the side facing the water. When she leaned like that, Empress Xianda would naturally be knocked into the water. Who was Empress Xianda? Jing Fei was dumb, but Empress Xianda wasn't dumb. She didn't care about this little trick and had been on her guard. Seeing Jing Fei lean over, she instantly took a step back and coincidentally avoided Jing Fei. She heard a putong, and the water splashed. The palace maid next to Jing Fei gave an "Aya" in shock. Chapter 1023. In the deep of the night, the residents of Prince Rui had fallen into a deep sleep. When everything was quiet, suddenly a voice was heard. It was Tai Yi, who suddenly had an important matter to report. Normally at this time, Tai Yi would not come and disturb. Shen Miao was in a daze from her sleep when she felt Xie Jingxing get up and leave the door. After a moment, it seemed that he said something to someone outside and there was the sound of clothes being worn in the room. She opened her eyes and saw Xie Jingxing standing in front of the desk to wear his clothes. Looking outside again, it was the middle of the night and one did not know why he looked like he was going out at this time. "What's the matter?" she asked. Xie Jingxing saw that she was awake and said, "Something happened in the palace. I will enter the palace to take a look. Sleep first and do not need to wait for me." Hearing that, Shen Miao's drowsiness was mostly dispersed. Since Xie Jingxing had to go out in the middle of the night, it could be seen that the matter was very serious and it was a matter in the palace. She said, "What matter is it? Is it very serious?" The Empress pushed Lu Jing into the pond. Xie Jingxing said as he put on his outer robe, "The specific matter cannot be said clearly in a short time." Shen Miao first breathed a sigh of relief. Xie Jingxing ran into the palace in the middle of the night and she thought that there were assassins in the palace. Hearing this, she was reassured. But when she thought about it, she asked in surprise, why would the Empress push Jing Fei into the pond? Shen Miao had rarely seen Empress Xianda and had seen Consort Jing. Facing a person like Consort Jing, Empress Xianda was disdainful to fight with her and Empress Xianda was not an impulsive person. If it was said that Consort Jing pushed Empress Xianda into the pond, Shen Miao would believe it, but if it was said that Empress Xianda did it, Shen Miao would not believe it. The Lu family are now in the palace. Xie Jingxing said, "They like to be pestering. I will go and take a look first." Shen Miao quickly got up, "I will also go." "It is too late." Xie Jingxing did not agree, "You sleep first. Nothing will happen." Shen Miao shook her head, "Since I have already instructed you to enter the palace, it would not be a simple matter. Anyway, I cannot sleep and if you leave me alone in the residence, my imagination would run wild. It would be better to go with you and know what is going on. Perhaps I can be of help." Xie Jingxing thought about it and said, "Never mind, I am not at ease leaving you here alone. Let's go." Shen Miao quickly got up and changed her clothes. Because it was too late at this time, the servants were all resting, so Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao only brought Tai Yi and Song Yang along. Both of them rode the carriage on the streets of Long Yi and there was not a single person on the streets. Xie Jingxing's expression was somewhat cold and Shen Miao was also thinking seriously in her mind. Even if Empress Xianda really pushed Consort Jing, it would not be worthwhile to call Xie Jingxing to the palace in the middle of the night. To say something unpleasant, even if Consort Jing died because of this, it would be a fight between the women in the inner palace and it would be able to send the Lu family away. Moreover, now that Emperor Yonglu and the Lu family had almost reached the point of falling out, why would he make a big fuss just to deal with the Lu family? When Shen Miao was in Mingqi, she had seen such palace concubines who would make things difficult for each other because of jealousy. Consort Jing was pushed into the pond by Empress Xianda and it was the most shoddy framing, so why would Xie Jingxing also make a trip to the palace? Shen Miao always felt that the matter was not that simple. However, Tai Yi said that the person from the palace who came to deliver the imperial edict was not very clear, so no one knew what the specific situation was. Both of them had their own thoughts, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the palace doors. At the palace doors was Emperor Yongli's Deng Gonggong. When he saw Xie Jingxing, he was happy but was surprised for a moment when he saw Shen Miao jumping down from the carriage. However, he did not worry about it and smiled. "Your Highness, Prince of First Rank has finally arrived. His Majesty is waiting for you in the palace." Chapter 1024. Xie Jingxing let Deng Gonggong walk in front while Shen Miao followed behind. After thinking for a while, she asked Deng Gonggong, "Is the Empress well now?" "The Empress is fine. Many thanks to Qin Wang Fei's concern." Deng Gonggong smiled. Shen Miao's eyes moved slightly. The Empress was fine, but there was such a big scene. That meant that something happened to that person. Sure enough, when she thought of this, she heard Deng Gonggong said, "But Consort Jing has not woken up at this moment." Xie Jingxing sneered, "What tricks is Lu Jing playing again?" His expression was rather annoyed. Deng Gonggong smiled and did not say anything more, but Shen Miao felt that there was some meaning in that smile. After entering the palace, Deng Gonggong brought the two of them straight to Jinhua Palace. Jinhua Palace was where Consort Jing stayed. It was already midnight, but Jinhua Palace was brightly lit and there was a group of palace maids kneeling in the hall. With one glance, Shen Miao saw that Emperor Yongle and Empress Xianda were also there. Both of them were sitting in the hall. Empress Xianda did not look any different as she was still calm and indifferent, but Emperor Yongli's face was like frost. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing walked in hand and Deng Gonggong quickly reported. When Emperor Yongle saw Shen Miao coming, he was slightly surprised, but Empress Xianda stood up and smiled as she walked over to Shen Miao. She held Shen Miao's hand and said intimately, "Previously your body was not well and one wanted to let you enter the palace to talk. Who knew that so many things happened? One did not think that you would come so late tonight." Shen Miao smiled. "One did not know what happened when your Highness entered the palace, so one followed." Empress Xianda asked her, "Is your body better?" Shen Miao said, "Already recovered. Many thanks to your ladyship's concern." Empress Xianda smiled, "Then Ben Gong is relieved." Xie Jingxing looked at Emperor Yongle and asked with a calm face, "Imperial older brother, what happened?" Everyone knew that Empress Xianda would definitely not push Consort Jing into the pond. Now that Consort Jing had not woken up and Emperor Yongle had already started to take action against the Lu family, there was no need to care about the Lu family's face, so why would he summon Xie Jingxing into the palace because of Consort Jing's body? Monarch Yongle said coldly, "The Lu clan just came here." Xie Jingxing frowned and said, "When I came in, I did not see the Lu family." The Lu family pestered endlessly and relied on their meritorious deeds to be cocky. Now that Jing Fei had fallen into the water and the Lu family had suffered losses under the hands of Emperor Yongle, they would definitely take this chance to make a fuss. At the very least, they would not let Empress Xianda go. Now there was not even a shadow of the Lu family. Could it be that the Lu family had already caused trouble on their way here? They aren't afraid that something will happen to Jing Fei. The one who spoke was Empress Xianda. They are just fearless. Shen Miao's heart moved. Fearless. What did these words mean? Just as he was thinking, he saw the imperial physician of the palace walk out of the bedroom. He walked in front of Emperor Yongle and bowed, replying, "Your Majesty, Imperial Consort Jing fell into the water and caught a cold. Luckily, her body is not bad and the dragon seed in her stomach is still fine. After taking 2 batches of medicine and resting for a while, both mother and child will definitely be safe." Jing Fei was pregnant. Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing were startled at the same time. Subconsciously, Shen Miao looked towards Empress Xiande. Empress Xiande's spring lips slightly raised and she looked as calm and generous as usual. It was just that Shen Miao felt that there was some ridicule in that smile. Looking at Emperor Yonglu again, his eyes were cold and his face was as deep as water. No matter how one looked at it, it did not look like he was happy. It seemed that Jing Fei had woken up in the room and started to call out, "Your Majesty, this Chia wants to see Your Majesty." Xie Jingxing looked at Emperor Yonglu with a smile that was not a smile, but Emperor Yonglu turned his head to look at Empress Xiande. Empress Xiande smiled gently, "Your Majesty should also go and see Jing Fei. The child is after all innocent." She then looked towards Xie Jingxing, "The Emperor will most likely want to speak to you in a while. Wait here for a while." She then said to Shen Miao, "After being tossed around for so long, Ben Gong also need to go back and change clothes. Qin Wang Fei should accompany Ben Gong. One fear that one would go crazy in the middle of the night. There is just hot tea in Wei Yang Palace." Chapter 1025. Empress Xiande was so dignified that one couldn't see anything wrong with her, but the more calm she was, the more uncomfortable it made people feel. Shen Miao saw that a large piece of Empress Xiande's skirt was wet and thought that she must have been at the pond with Consort Jing. When Consort Jing fell into the water, Empress Xiande's clothes were also wet. However, probably because he had been worried about Lu Jing, he didn't bother to change into a clean set of clothes. She nodded and said, "All right." Emperor Yonglu stared at Empress Xiande and didn't speak. In the room, Jing Fei's calls became more and more delicate. Empress Xiande said, "Your Majesty should go in early to see. The one who is tired is not Jing Fei, but the child in Jing Fei's stomach." Finishing, she didn't care what expression Emperor Yonglu had and pulled Shen Miao away. As soon as they left the Jinghua Palace, the air outside seemed to be much fresher. Long Ye's bitter summer was about to end. Not long after, the weather would gradually turn cold and it would be the beginning of autumn. Nowadays, the better the flowers bloomed in the summer, the more desolate the withering ones would be in the future. Shen Miao lowered her head and thought of the strange atmosphere between Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xiande just now. She felt that Empress Xiande was a bit tired today. Even when they were in Jinghua Palace, she was at odds with Emperor Yonglu. This was different to Empress Xiande's steady personality. Maybe it was because of Jing Fei's child? That's right, Empress Xiande had no children. Ever since the first time Shen Miao entered the palace, she discovered that Emperor Yonglu was currently in his prime but did not have any heirs. The reason why the Lu and Yi clans had so many followers in the imperial court, aside from the power left behind by the previous emperor, was that they did not have any heirs. No matter how one looked at it, an emperor without his own children would not last long. But now Jing Fei had one. If Jing Fei gave birth to a son, would he have to be the future heir apparent? Then wouldn't the world be tied together with the Lu family in the end? Outside relatives monopolizing power was what Emperor Yonglu didn't want to see the most. No wonder Emperor Yonglu wasn't happy at all when he heard Jing Fei was pregnant. However, Empress Xiande's unhappiness was probably not only because of the position of Empress, but also because of her jealousy as a woman. Bystanders could see more clearly. Looking at a problem from an outsider's point of view was always the clearest. It was the same for Shen Miao. The way Empress Xiande looked at Emperor Yonglu was exactly the same as how she looked at Fu Xiuyi. She loved her husband deeply, but in the end, another woman was pregnant with her husband's child. Even someone as calm as Xiande Empress would feel a sliver of displeasure in her heart. She was just a woman after all. Qin Wang Fei. Empress Xiande's voice came into her ears. Shen Miao recovered to her senses and Empress Xiande was already looking at her with a somewhat tolerant smile. you were lost in thought and did not even hear what Ben Gong said. Shen Miao quickly apologized, one has offended your ladyship. There is no need to be like this. Empress Xianda did not put it to heart and said, it is so late, it is natural for people to be distracted due to tiredness. Qin Wangfei does not have to blame yourself. As Shen Miao walked, she could not help but ask, your ladyship, this official's wife wants to ask you something. Excuse me. Did you really push Consort Jing into the water? Empress Xianda paused for a moment and then looked at her with a smile. What does Qin Wangfei think? Her ladyship would definitely not do that. Consort Jing did not just enter the palace and your ladyship had lived peacefully with her for many years, so it is not worthwhile to deal with her at this critical juncture. Chapter 1026. Shen Miao was silent. Empress Xianda smiled again. Ben Gong indeed do not need to push her into the pond. The emperor understands this logic and the Lu family also understand. The only one that does not understand is Lu Jing. As for this crime, it does not matter. The purpose of framing a person is to deceive the world. But even you who just came to Longyi know about this lie, much less the officials of Longyi. Shen Miao asked, does your ladyship not explain? Ben Gong is too lazy to explain and disdain to explain. Do what Jing Fei wants. Ben Gong does not care at all. Empress Xianda said lightly. Shen Miao thought that in this aspect, she was completely different from Empress Xianda. If it was not her own crime, no matter how disdainful she would not admit it herself. No matter how she changed, she was still fierce in her bones. Empress Xianda was like a puddle of water, tolerant and calm, making others feel that they were very small in front of her. As they were talking, unknowingly, Weiyang Palace was already in front of them. Tao Gugu was waiting at the door and seeing the two of them return, she quickly walked in front of Empress Xianda and said, is your ladyship well? Is Jing Fei Nyang all right? After Jing Fei fell into the water, Empress Xianda let Tao Gugu return first. Tao Gugu had been worried but Empress Xianda only returned now. Empress Xianda did not answer Tao Gugu's question and smiled, nothing. Ben Gong will go and change clothes first. Tao Gugu, bring Qin Wangfei to the hall to sit and pour some hot tea for her. Finishing, she went inside to change clothes. Tao Gugu brought Shen Miao to the hall and the tea was just right. Tao Gugu poured tea for Shen Miao and could not help but ask, Qin Wangfei, what is the matter with that Jing Fei Nyang? Nothing serious happened, right? What took you so long? He was a loyal servant who was burning with anxiety. Shen Miao thought about it and said, Jing Fei is fine and the child in her stomach is also well. Tao Gugu was startled and almost spilled the tea. When she reacted, she quickly stopped her actions but her face was very pale. Shen Miao saw her like this and asked, previously when Jing Fei was pregnant, you all did not know? Tao Gugu forced a smile, Qin Wangfei is joking. How would she know? If she knew. She didn't continue. Shen Miao did not miss the flash of anger and resentment on Tao Gugu's face as she thought what would happen if she knew about it. Would she first snuff out the child in her belly, like the women in the harem often did? Just as he was thinking, Empress Xianda came out from inside. She changed her clothes and the one that she changed into was a moon-white gauze long dress that was faintly discernible embroidered with orchids. One had to say that after taking off the Empress's court attire, Empress Xianda's temperament was like a different person. When Shen Miao looked carefully, she felt that Empress Xianda's brows were light but comfortable, and her entire body had the taste of a historian. It was similar to Pei Lang but it was more elegant than Pei Lang. She walked over and sat down beside Shen Miao. She picked up a cup of tea and smiled. One is very sleepy at night and with such a cup of tea, it is much warmer. Tao Gugu suddenly knelt down and said, "Nyang Nyang, do you still have the mood to drink tea?" Empress Sienda was startled for a moment and said, "What is this for?" There was a faint harshness in her tone. Tao Gugu was unmoved and still knelt down, but there was some grief and indignation as she said, "Jing Fei is pregnant. She is pregnant and still wants to frame you. You have to endure this. How long do you have to endure for in this lifetime?" These words had somewhat overstepped the identity of a servant to a master, and the originally good atmosphere in the room suddenly turned cold. Shen Miao looked down and did not speak as she held the tea. Empress Sienda said, "Qiu Shui, you have followed Ben Gong for so many years and Ben Gong treat you as a relative, but you are too overstepping the rules." Chapter 1027. Tao Gugu was not willing to stand up. After a moment, Empress Sienda sighed and said, "Never mind. Lu Jing does not know that she is pregnant. Ben Gong is very clear of Lu Jing's character. If she was pregnant, she would not dare to use the child in her stomach to harm Ben Gong. She would only protect the dragon seed, and would not let anything happen to the child. But now it is a fact that Consort Jing is pregnant." Tao Gugu raised her head, "Your ladyship must also think for yourself." Shen Miao finally was no longer silent. She said, "Tao Gugu's words are right. One must consider the matter of Consort Jing. It is not all for your ladyship. Even with the Lu family's current situation, for your majesty, your ladyship cannot just watch from the sidelines." Empress Sienda looked at her strangely, as if she did not think that Shen Miao would speak at this juncture. But she quickly smiled in relief and said, "It seems that Jing Xing had told you a lot. Get up, Qiu Shui." Empress Sienda said to Tao Gugu, "Ben Gong do not want to say it a second time." This sentence was already spoken in a commanding tone. Tao Gugu hesitated for a moment before finally standing up. Empress Sienda looked at Shen Miao, "Let you see a joke. Qiu Shui is Ben Gong's closest person and wholeheartedly thinks for Ben Gong. One spoke too hastily, but one's heart is good." She sighed. Actually, Ben Gong had always thought that Lu Jing was stupid and Ben Gong disdained to compete with her. But now it seems that Ben Gong was wrong. Lu Jing still has some ability to avoid the seed soup and be pregnant with the emperor's child. Seed soup. Shen Miao's heart moved. Empress Sienda told her the secrets of the palace. In fact, the more one knew, the more dangerous it was. Those who knew the secrets of the palace would eventually become fertilizer for the flowers in the palace. But she did not know why. She felt that Empress Sienda only told her this because she wanted to tell her, and not because she knew more. "You are a smart one and think that you have seen that the emperor does not have any children in the palace. It is not because of the consorts or the emperor himself, but because they would drink the seed soup. This Lu Jing had drunk it before, but I don't know why. She must have used some method to get pregnant. This is probably the first in the palace." After saying that, she seemed to have thought of something and smiled. "Perhaps it's not the first. I once had a child, but it was a miscarriage." Aunt Tao's eyes reddened when she heard this. Shen Miao's hand that was holding the teacup trembled and she did not speak. "His Majesty often thinks that you are not good, because he thinks that Jing Xing is the best. An ordinary girl, even if she is a fairy, is probably not worth mentioning in his eyes. In the beginning, when Jing Xing said that he wanted to marry a Ming Qi's young lady, His Majesty found people to inquire a lot about you, and after hearing about it, he told Ben Gong that you are vicious." Empress Sienda suddenly changed the topic and looked at Shen Miao, "But looking at it now, Ben Gong feel that you are very kind." Shen Miao did not understand and heard Empress Sienda speaking again. "You obviously wanted to ask Ben Gong about the miscarriage but were afraid that it would cause Ben Gong's heart to be sad, so you endured and did not ask." Shen Miao softly said, "This official's wife just do not dare." You are really straightforward. Jing Xing found an interesting wife and Ben Gong like you even more. Empress Xianda smiled. She said, actually the matter has passed for a long time and Ben Gong is already relieved. At the beginning when Ben Gong was pregnant, Lu Jing added cold herbs into the dim sum that the imperial chefs made. Just a little bit and Ben Gong's child was gone. At that time Lu Jing had just entered the palace and was favored, and the Lu family watched, thus His Majesty could only punish her lightly. Ben Gong felt that there was no fate between her and the child, so it was fine. Chapter 1028. Just by listening, Shen Miao could already guess the heart-wrenching pain. In the previous lifetime, in the inner palace of Mingqi, the concubines fought with each other for the emperor's favor. The inner palace was the battlefield for females, and when females were ruthless, they were sometimes even more terrifying than males. Many of the children of the concubines became victims under such circumstances, and no matter how vicious the concubines were, at the moment they lost their children, they would cry out in despair. Did the calm and gentle Empress Xianda in front of her also experience that kind of despair before? Scars would take a long time to heal and only one would know the pain of scars. The most hateful thing was that one could not even take revenge for the child. Why was this so? Do not blame His Majesty and do not think that Ben Gong is pitiful. Even though Ben Gong is indeed pitiful, Ben Gong is also an evil person. Empress Xianda said, after Ben Gong's miscarriage, Ben Gong could no longer give birth and would not be able to have children in this lifetime. Thus His Majesty made all the females in the inner palace unable to give birth to his children. If Ben Gong is not good, everyone would not be well off. Shen Miao was startled. Because Empress Xianda could not give birth, so Emperor Yongle made all the females in the palace unable to give birth. Then Emperor Yongle should like Empress Xianda very much, but if he really liked her, why would he let Empress Xianda suffer such a big grievance? Even if Empress Xianda did not mention it, Emperor Yongle himself would also want to kill the culprit of his children, so why would he treat her as his favored concubine? Shen Miao only felt that the secrets of the imperial family of the Great Liang were no less than those of the Mingqi. Empress Xianda saw her startled appearance and suddenly laughed. You really believe it? How would His Majesty give up all the children of the concubines because of Ben Gong? Jing Xing could do it because Jing Xing's luck was good, but His Majesty's luck was bad. He is the emperor. There were many meanings in these words and Shen Miao did not know how to continue the conversation. But what you said is right. One should naturally plan for the future. Lu Jing, this child came at the right time, and because of this child, her life was temporarily saved. But the Lu family would not have such good luck. Empress Xianda gently smiled and her smile became somewhat sharp. The child cannot be kept. In the imperial study, Xie Jingxing's eyes were cold as he spoke to the emperor in front. Jin knows that it cannot be kept. If it is possible, Jin hopes that one can force it to be kept. Emperor Yongle spoke coldly, as though the person he was about to force down wasn't his son, but someone else. Why didn't you do it just now? Xie Jingxing asked sharply. Qingzhen did not allow. Emperor said. Qingzhen was Empress Xianda's maiden name, and this name had not come out of Emperor Yongle's mouth for a long time. After a long while, Xie Jingxing then ridiculed. Imperial Sa had always been soft-hearted, perhaps it was because she pitied her own flesh and blood that had died. Xie Yuan. These words Emperor Yong Emperors Emperor Qing. Emperors Long's King, one Emperor, Xies, and Emperor, a other, Qing Emperor, King one of the other. I do not care what happens to Lu Jing and I do not want to care about that child. The Lu family came and left. They definitely think that the child in Lu Jing's stomach is a protective talisman. Why would we give them such a big gift? The emperor who did not have any children suddenly had his only child. So this only child was a life-saving straw. Whether Emperor Yongle was willing or not, the position of the heir apparent had landed on the child in Jing Fei's stomach. So when the Lu family came today and saw that Jing Fei was pregnant, they did not make a fuss and quickly left. Maybe in their eyes, Empress Xianda's position as Empress was going to be gone soon. They didn't even have time to feel pity and would not be unforgiving. They would just treat it as their benevolence and doing a good deed. They had no worries like this, but what was the reality? Since ancient times, there were 4 words: the affairs of the world are hard to predict. The Lu family always forget one thing. You and I are both surnamed Xia, and the blood of the Xia family flows in our bodies. Emperor Yongle said indifferently, and the Xia family are all heartless. Chapter 1029. On the way back, Shen Miao thought about what Empress Xianda said and her heart could not calm down for a long time. In the end, Jing Fei and her child were safe and Empress Xianda did not get into any trouble because of this. It seemed to be a very happy ending, but Shen Miao felt that something was not right. When they returned to the residence of Prince Rui, it was almost dawn and it would be very late if they were to sleep now. Moreover, Shen Miao was not in the mood to rest. When Jing Zhe and Gu Yut saw this, they instructed the small kitchen to cook some sweet soup for both of them. Shen Miao and Xia Jingxing returned to the room and closed the door before sitting at the table. She looked at Xia Jingxing and said, "Now that consort Jing is pregnant, what should the Lu family do?" Logically, Emperor Wen Yongle didn't have any other children, so the child Jing Fei was pregnant with was precious. If she was pregnant with a son, then if there were no accidents, the position of the future heir apparent would naturally belong to the child in Jing Fei's belly. Logically speaking, that should be the case. But Empress Xianda's words were very disapproving. This made people think deeply. Unless Emperor Yongle had other children, why would he be like this? The Lu family had nothing to fear because of Jing Fei. Was Yongle Emperor's plan to deal with the Lu family going to be stopped because of this? Shen Miao felt that it was impossible. When Xia Jingxing heard it, he lightly said, "Imperial older brother has already made a move against the Lu family. There is no difference whether he is alive or not." The meaning in these words was that the child in Jing Fei's womb was one thing and the ending of the Lu family was another. At most, Jing Fei would temporarily keep her life because of her child. The Lu family would still fall according to the original plan. Shen Miao frowned. "I spoke to her ladyship and felt that it was somewhat strange. One heard that her ladyship had a miscarriage and it was because of consort Jing. We can't say if this was intentional, but no matter how magnanimous the Empress is, how could she safely watch Jing Fei live well for so many years?" Xia Jingxing was pouring tea for her, but his actions paused when he heard this. Shen Miao stared at him. "Tell me honestly, why does His Majesty not have an heir until now? Is it intentional or is it a last resort?" She thought about it and felt that it was too strange that Emperor Yongle did not have any children. Every emperor, regardless of whether they were wise or incapable, hoped to have as many children as possible. The more princes there were, the more balanced they would be, and the more stable dynasty situation would be. Even for a person like Fu Xiuyi, he never lacked heirs. Previously Shen Miao found it strange that Emperor Yongli's political achievements were so outstanding and the people lived and worked in peace, so how could the court still be unstable until now? Later when she saw his son, she understood. This was because Emperor Yongle did not have any children. Just this point alone was enough to make the courtiers complain. Speaking of which, Emperor Yongle was already very impressive. If it was an ordinary emperor who did not have children, not to mention maintaining the balance for so many years, he would have long been stripped of his imperial robes and thrown off the stage to become an ordinary person. Xie Jingxing then looked at Shen Miao after a long time and his gaze was somewhat strange. You really want to know? After you returned from the Imperial hunting grounds, when you were unconscious, I had a premonition that some things would change, but at that time I had just arrived at Longyi and did not know much about the situation of the Great Liang, so I could not help much. So other than going to the Phoenix Head Manor to look for that expert, I could not help with anything else. Shen Miao said, I do not like to be so passive. If there is a day that you also have something big to do, I hope that I will not be useless. But I do not know anything, so even if I have the heart, how can I help? Xie Jingxing looked at her for a while and suddenly sighed. He was half gratified and half teasing as he touched her head. Our family's Jiao Jiao is not only good at calculating people, but also considerate. Chapter 1030. Shen Miao pushed his hand away and said, You cannot let me be a rice worm that only knows how to eat. I dare not underestimate you. Xie Jingxing smiled and sighed, Since you want to know, I will not hide it. You once told me that you had a real dream and that dream was very tragic. Now what I am going to tell you is not a dream but something that really happened. The journey from Longyi to the Ding capital would require at least half a year to reach even with the fastest horses. Do you always want to know why did I become the son of the Marquis of Linen? For so many years, I obviously knew about my birth but did not return to the Great Liang. It is not because I do not want to return but because I cannot return. His gaze gradually became sharp. Xie Jingxing's real name was Xie Yuan and his courtesy name Jingxing had the meaning of looking up to the high mountain, doing things in Jingxing, representing that the person who gave him this name hoped that he would be a person of noble character. Not to mention whether the name was successful or not, it showed the deep love of the person who gave him this name. The person who gave him this name was his imperial father Emperor Xiao Wu Xiaolong and the one who gave him the courtesy name was his Empress mother Empress Jing Xian and Empress Xiao. Emperor Xiao Wu Xiaolong was the most outstanding prince in the Great Liang imperial court and held the military power in his hands, stabilized the four seas, was handsome, heroic and high-spirited. If there was anything bad, it would be because he was the youngest son. The Great Liang imperial family did not support the youngest and this was the rule since ancient times. But Xiaolong was too outstanding and the more outstanding a person was, they would either be indifferent to worldly matters or they would be ambitious and difficult to quell. Unfortunately Xiaolong was the latter and adding on to the fact that the crown prince was inferior to him, Xiaolong finally embarked on the road to fight for the throne. Xiaolong's road to the throne was very smooth. He had an innate advantage as he was born from the Empress and he had outstanding military achievements, so at the end Xiaolong plotted to frame his biological crown prince older brother and angered his biological mother to death, controlling his biological father and finally successfully obtained the throne of Emperor Xiao Wu. In the road to fight for the throne, it was necessary to give up some things like family affection and love. Of course to Xiaolong, these were not important. He was an ambitious person so at the end he married the daughter of the left minister Xiao family. The Xiao family was the head of the civil officials and by marrying the daughter of the Xiao family, one could almost rope in more than half of the Great Liang's civil officials. In addition, the daughter of the Xiao family was born to be extremely beautiful, intelligent and magnanimous. A smart beauty was never a loss. This marriage was actually extremely worthwhile. Therefore, after he ascended the throne, Emperor Xiaowu and Empress Jingxian treated each other with respect. Emperor Xiaowu was a wise ruler and Empress Jingxian was famous for her virtue. Not long after, Empress Jingxian gave birth to her eldest son, Xie Qi, who was made the crown prince. Originally, the Great Liang's territory was gradually expanding, and the country's power was also gradually taking the lead among the three countries. Everything looked very perfect. But in this world, the most difficult thing to retain was the unchanging. Those who go through thick and thin with you may not be able to share your prosperity. Empress Xiao married Emperor Xiaowu at a time of chaos. Both husband and wife excelled in civil and military affairs. Xia Yilong was ambitious, Empress Xiao was steady, Xia Yilong was clever, and Empress Xiao was resourceful. Chapter 1031. Empress Xiao was intelligent and had always adhered to the family motto of treating her husband as her god after her marriage. In addition, Xia Yilong was an outstanding man and they got along well over the years. But those messy women gradually began to rack their brains to give birth to a prince and even began to threaten Xia Qi's position as crown prince. Empress Xiao finally could not sit back and do nothing. Every woman, even the weakest one, could turn into a ferocious beast in order to protect their children. Moreover, Empress Xiao was not a weak rabbit. As the most outstanding lady in the Xiao family, she naturally had her own brains. She began to fight back strongly. Empress Xiao's ability was not to be underestimated as she was able to survive the chaotic days with Emperor Xiaowu. How could those pampered women who only knew how to live a comfortable life be compared to her? They were just asking for humiliation. Xia Qi was safe and sound while Empress Xiao won every battle. Her strength and intelligence greatly deterred those women and for a while, no one dared to act rashly. However, as intelligent as Empress Xiao was, she also made a mistake. The more outstanding she was, the more Emperor Xiaowu felt uncomfortable. Emperor Xiaowu became more wary of her and even began to find ways to find her mistakes. In the beginning, he only found a few opponents for Empress Xiao in the back palace and coldly watched them fight. But in the end, he would subconsciously side with one side and everything Empress Xiao did was wrong. He began to directly and unhesitatingly suppress the Xiao family. Empress Xiao felt very sad, but she still believed that Xiao Wu was her husband and everyone would make mistakes at some point in their lives. She only wanted to protect her position, let Xia Qi grow up safely, and see Xia Qi successfully inherit the throne of Great Liang. Who knew those women would try to harm Xia Qi? During that period of time, Emperor Xiaowu suddenly warmed up to Empress Xiao. Empress Xiao did not know why and not long after, Premier Xiao suddenly resigned. Xia Yilong was indeed a scheming man. Although the Xiao family was ruthless, they were not as ruthless as Xia Yilong. The Xiao family only had one empress in hundreds of years and for this empress, the Xiao family did not hesitate to sacrifice themselves. When Empress Xiao learned of this, it was already too late. She only felt disgusted when she knew that those nights of tenderness were Xia Yilong's scheming actions. But she did not expect that she was pregnant. This child in her womb was different from Xia Qi. It had come to this world under Xia Yilong's deliberate and hypocritical scheme. When Empress Xiao was pregnant, she often thought that if he was a son, he must not be like his father. He was ambitious and could come up with endless plots and schemes, but he could not casually take advantage of people's sincerity. That was the most despicable behavior, and also the most shameful. After she was pregnant, it was not convenient for Empress Xiao to fight for many things. But she did not expect that someone would take advantage of her at this time to hit on Xia Qi. Xia Qi was drugged. It was an extremely potent poison. If it weren't for the fact that the head of the Gao clan and Prime Minister Xiao were old friends, the head of the Gao clan would have personally taken action and Xia Qi wouldn't have survived. Although he had lived past that time, the Gao family's patriarch had also asserted that the poison had already entered his intestines. He was merely stalling for time. Xia Qi wouldn't live past 35 years old, and this poison would also affect his children. If Xia Qi had children in the future, they would inevitably be born with congenital deficiencies or carry poison in their bodies. The head of the Gao clan was a rare divine physician in the world. If even he said so, Xia Qi's fate was almost sealed. The other party came for Xia Qi's life. Even if they did not want his life, they wanted to destroy his life. Chapter 1032. Empress Xiao did not expect that she, once the most outstanding daughter of the Xiao family, Empress Jing Xian, who was famous for her virtue, would one day fall into such a state. In order to protect her, her family voluntarily withdrew from the Great Liang's officialdom. And of her 2 children, one became a cripple who could not live past the age of 40 due to a conspiracy, and the other was the fruit of a vicious plan. The poisoner was found, and it was Emperor Xiao's newly promoted favorite concubine. Empress Xiao tied the favorite concubine in the imperial garden, cut her flesh piece by piece, and watched as she breathed her last. At that time, all the palace maids and eunuchs in the imperial garden almost fainted, while Empress Xiao felt it was rather boring. Emperor Xiao naturally scolded the favorite concubine and personally condemned her for her crimes, and even comforted Empress Xiao. Hearing his gentle words, Empress Xiao's heart was as cold as ice, but her mind was filled with wariness and vigilance. Did Emperor Xiao know about this? Empress Xiao felt that she and Emperor Xiao had been husband and wife for so many years, it was time to re-examine him. Even if Emperor Xiao did not know, this favorite concubine was originally promoted to deal with Empress Xiao. The son did not kill the benevolent, but the benevolent died because of me. On one hand, Empress Xiao was on guard, but on the other hand, she pretended to be sad that her son had met with this unexpected disaster. The news of Xie Qi's incurable poison was not spread out, but who knew if it would be known in the future? However, what Empress Xiao was most worried about was the future. The child in her belly was about to be born. Emperor Xiao disliked Xie Qi because of the Xiao family. If something happened to Xie Qi in the future, and if the child in her belly was a son, this child would replace Xie Qi's position and sit on the crown prince's seat. Who knows if it would be the next Xie Qi? If it was a daughter, Empress Xiao would not want her to stay in the palace and be manipulated by others, unable to control her own fate. The most important thing was that Empress Xiao was about to start her counterattack. After she gave birth to this child, she wanted to return the pain that the Xiao family, Xie Qi, and herself had suffered double. There would be many inconveniences with a newborn child, and she might even be controlled by others. So, she had to think of a way. Generally speaking, the crown prince who was replaced would be far away from everything that he should have obtained, while the crown prince would obtain things that did not belong to him. Empress Xiao handed over her infant child to her confidant and said, looking up to the high mountain, Jingxing Xingji, his courtesy name is Jingxing. If there comes a day when he grows up to be a man of indomitable spirit, he can use overt schemes, but never use a person's true heart. She hardened her heart and looked at her child for the last time before saying, send him away. 2 months and less than half a year's journey. From Longyi to the Ding capital, he ran like a dead horse all the way. That was the first time in Xie Yuan's life that he came into contact with this world, but what welcomed him was escape. In those days of escape, he opened his eyes wide, learned to speak, and learned to fight against the world. In the residence of the Marquis of Lin and in the Ding capital, Princess Yuqing was about to give birth. Empress Xiao's henchmen had followed Empress Xiao's order to send Xie Yuan to an ordinary rich family, far away from the disputes of the court. But on that day when the henchman was investigating on the streets, he accidentally found out that Princess Yuqing was about to give birth, and the child's name had already been decided, Jingxing. The henchman thought that this was really a coincidence. That night, the wind and rain were bitter and there was a heavy downpour in the Ding capital. The rainwater diluted the blood that was spilled in the courtyard, diluted the woman's painful moans, and also diluted the baby's weak cries. Chapter 1033. That child with the surname Xie and name Jingxing, who was fated with Xie Yuan, died before he was born. The confidant who was carrying the infant hesitated for a moment but made a decision that made him rejoice for the rest of his life. He changed Xie Yuan to Xie Jingxing, and from then on, Jingxing's name was no longer a character. He was the little heir of the residence of the Marquis of Linen and carried Empress Xiao's expectations and Princess Yuqing's expectations to live well in this world. Not long after, the initially chosen wealthy family in the Ding capital was exterminated in one night. One did not know why, but the insiders knew that Emperor Xiaowu finally discovered some clues and traveled thousands of miles to silence them. One did not know if it was fortunate or unfortunate, but because of the confidant's mistake, Xie Jingxing managed to avoid this life and death calamity. It was as if it was destined to be good. That residence of the Marquis of Linen was also filled with filthy matters. Madame Fong and her two sons continued to cause trouble, and the only thing that Xie Jingxing could rely on was Xie Ding's favor. But Xie Ding's favor was not necessarily a good thing. Xie Ding was not in the residence for many years, and Xie Jingxing was a young son, and it was already difficult for him to survive in the mouths of the jackals, wolves, tigers and leopards. If not for Empress Xiao's confidant secretly helping him, one feared that he would have become a pile of yellow soil and meet the real heir of the residence of the Marquis of Linen. Not only that, the Emperor of Ming Qi secretly suppressed the Xie family. In such an environment, Xie Jingxing gradually grew up. He was thankful that the confidant placed him in such a cruel environment so that he would not be too unaccustomed to the rugged road ahead. He was frivolous and had a sloppy smile as he lazily rode the horse through the streets and alleys of the Ding capital. He was unbearably stubborn and gave one a headache, but as Empress Xiao expected, he grew up to be a man of indomitable spirit and a man who could fight against an entire region. He had never used other people's feelings before. On the surface, he casually ridiculed but respected every sincerity. Towards Princess Rong Xian, towards Su Mingfeng, towards the Marquis of Linen and towards Shen Miao. He lived very well in the Ding capital of Ming Qi, and just by relying on himself, he had the ability to secretly compete with the enemy. What about Empress Xiao? In those years, Empress Xiao missed her youngest son and grieved for her eldest son's encounter and decided to fight back. Aren't you most afraid that the country would fall into the Xiao family's hands? Isn't that what you care about the most? I will take it from your hands and trample it under my feet. At that time, will you feel a trace of regret for what you have done today? Empress Xiao was the daughter of the Xiao family. She was as resourceful as a man. While she was still feeling more energetic due to her anger, Emperor Xiaowu was starting to age. The imperial concubines in the harem distracted him, and his ambition gradually faded away after he thought he could rest easy. Adversity begets adversity and perishes in ease. When Emperor Xiaowu died, only Empress Xiao was by his side. Empress Xiao said, "Your Majesty, don't worry. You and I are husband and wife. I won't let you be too lonely on the road to hell. All the women and concubines in the palace that you have favored, this Chia will have them accompany you. And your children, other than the crown prince, this Chia will not miss a single one." Emperor Xiaowu's eyes widened. Also, Empress Xiao seemed to have thought of something and leaned over to his ear. "Our youngest son is also doing well. In the beginning your Majesty sent people to pursue and kill him to Ming Qi, but they killed the wrong person. After a few more years, when the court has settled down, this Chia will bring him back to acknowledge his ancestry. The great Liang's country must be inherited by someone. This Chia is soft-hearted, so the brothers are still surnamed Xiao. If this Chia was as hard-hearted as your Majesty, then the great Liang's country would really change dynasties. Your Majesty, have a good journey. This country, this Chia will keep it first." Empress Xiao stood in front of the bed and smiled warmly. Emperor Xiaowu died with remaining grievances. Empress Jing Xian became Empress Dowager Jing Xian. Xie Qi became Emperor Yonglu. Xie Jingxing was still in Ming Qi's Ding capital, groping along the dark road. He muddle-headedly found out about his life experience, but was warned that his biological father was chasing after him and his biological mother trapped his biological father to death. Now that the wind and waves were at their peak, one must not act rashly. Due to a freak combination of factors, Empress Jing Xian really did as she said and cleaned up the Great Liang's inner palace cleanly. Those who were once domineering towards them, mother and son, finally became Emperor Xiao's companions on the road to the Yellow Springs. She said to Xia Qi, who had become Emperor Yongluo, "Ijia is old and cannot manage so many matters outside, but a clean inner palace is something that Ijia can give you. From now on, there will be no villains in the inner palace. You only need to promise Ijia one thing, to hold this country firmly in your hands and never let it decline." The Lu and Yi families were Emperor Xiao's confidants and were extremely cunning. A centipede would not fall down even if it died. Because of the complexity of the forces, it was not easy to uproot them. Thus Emperor Yongluo had been secretly planning to deal with these two families. Empress Dowager Jing Xian passed away 2 years later. When she was reading the Lu family's memorial, she suddenly fell down and never woke up. The Gao family said that it was because she was mentally and physically exhausted and was like a lamp that had run out of oil. But the day before, she was still talking to Emperor Yongluo about changing the style of the ceremony this year, and perhaps think of a way to make Xie Jingxing return to the Great Liang. Things were unpredictable. In this lifetime, she finally did not have the chance to reunite with Xie Yuan. Thus they were separated forever. Chapter 1034. Empress Jing Xian's entire life was most likely very legendary. From the most pampered daughter of the Prime Minister to the Empress, she experienced the separation of husband and wife, frame-up and the separation of mother and son. But at the end, a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye, the inner palace of the Great Liang was cleanly dealt with, which made one extremely happy. She was the type of person who became more and more unwilling in adversity. If one were to talk about regrets, the first was that Xie Qi's poison could not be cured and the second was that she was unable to meet Xie Yuan again. The two brothers, Xie Qi and Xie Yuan, were more like Empress Xiao. In the beginning, Empress Xiao was a great beauty sought after by everyone in Longyi, and it was not an exaggeration to say that she was a stunning beauty. And Xie Qi and Xie Yuan not only inherited Empress Xiao's beauty but also her methods. Because Xie Qi was in the imperial family, there were some shadows of Emperor Xiao Wu. For example, when he was playing politics, he had to use the power of marriage in order to balance the various forces. But Xie Yuan was different. He was far away in Ming-Qi and was in opposition with the imperial family. He did not have a trace of Xie Ilong's shadow, and he had indeed done what Empress Xiao had expected of him. Even though he was not considered a good person, he was definitely not a despicable person. Shen Miao did not think that Xie Jingxing's life was so tortuous and bizarre. Towards Empress Jing Xian's life, she could not help but admire her. Empress Jing Xian was so similar to her in her previous life, but at the end, she was able to become the winner of this country. But Shen Miao knew that she could not be like Empress Xiao, who had the determination to cut off one's wrist and endure the pain of one's flesh and blood being separated. Seeing her complicated eyes, Xie Jingxing smiled unconcernedly. "No need to pity me. I have never seen her before and naturally do not have any attachment to her." He was a young man who grew up alone in the storm and was chased by his biological father since birth and had never seen his biological mother before. But it created a more open-minded state of mind than ordinary people. No matter how many things were in his eyes, it was just a smile. But he did not care much about other people's feelings because he did not have any expectations of others from the start. Shen Miao was silent for a moment before saying, "I will accompany you to the end." Xie Jingxing's eyes moved slightly before his lips hooked up into a smile. "Since you sympathize with me, why not compensate me?" His smirk instantly swept away the somewhat sentimental atmosphere that had just been a moment ago. Shen Miao glared at him and suddenly thought of something, but in this case, His Majesty's illness. She did not continue speaking. Since the Gao clan said that Xie Qi wouldn't live past the age of 35, how many years did Emperor Yongle have left? Imperial older brother has already passed his 36th birthday this year. Xie Jingxing said, it can be seen that one's assertions are not accurate at times. However, he said with a cold expression, Imperial brother's health is getting worse. Do the Liu and Yi family know of this matter? Shen Miao asked. I heard that after Emperor Xiaowu's death, my mother had silenced all the people in the palace who knew about it. Now, the only people who know about my brother's illness are the master of the Gao family, you, me, and my sister-in-law. Shen Miao's heart jumped as she thought that Empress Jing Xian's methods were indeed fierce, but it also solved a lot of worries. Then did the Empress know of his illness before marrying to the Emperor, or was it after marrying to the Emperor? Shen Miao asked. Xie Jingxing looked at her with a smile that was not a smile. What do you want to ask? Shen Miao thought that if Empress Xiande knew that Emperor Yongle would not live past the age of 35, would she still marry Emperor Yongle? After all, it was not an easy thing to be a widow at such a young age. But if one only knew about it after marrying in, would one not be deceived for a lifetime? Chapter 1035. If it was you, what would you choose? Xie Jingxing asked. Shen Miao said, when I married you, I did not like you to the point of being willing to be a widow for you. Finishing those words, she revealed a vexed expression, thinking that this was cursing Xie Jingxing. But when Xie Jingxing heard it, he was very happy and pulled her over, pressing Shen Miao's head into his embrace and said with a smile, oh? Meaning that now you like me to the point of being a widow for me. Not waiting for Shen Miao to answer, he said thoughtfully, so to speak, when you married me, you also admired me. Who admired you? Shen Miao was pressed into his embrace and could not breathe as she spoke in a flustered and exasperated manner. But she heard Xie Jingxing's leisurely voice ringing from the top of her head, if you like me then just say it. I have always had tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex and would definitely not bear to let you be a widow at such a young age. Shen Miao did not get angry but instead laughed and retorted, be a widow. Do not worry, there are not many females in this world that would obediently be widows. There are many disputes in front of a widow and there are many small brothels in Longyi. Now that she was brought up by Xie Jingxing, she no longer put on airs like before and would occasionally anger Xie Jingxing half to death. Sure enough, when he heard that, Xie Jingxing's actions paused and stared at her carefully before speaking gently, want to look for Xiao Yu, her? His tone was gentle but Shen Miao felt an inexplicable chill at the back of her neck. Without waiting for her to speak, Xie Jingxing suddenly carried her up and stood up before striding towards the bedside, scaring Shen Miao so much that she screamed but Xie Jingxing was unperturbed as he said, you remind me to work hard, so naturally this husband would not dare to be lazy. Tai Yi, who was guarding outside, was caught off guard by the movements of the husband and wife until his old face turned red. He did not know whether to leave or stay as his black face turned red, making it look very interesting. The husband and wife panted for a while before they finally stopped. Shen Miao used Xie Jingxing's arm as a pillow and pushed him to ask, you have not answered my question previously. Does Her Majesty the Empress know or not? Imperial sister-in-law is such a smart woman. If she doesn't know that she was tricked into marrying into this family, it will be a big problem. Xie Jingxing sighed. When Imperial Mother was choosing a wife for Imperial older brother, she once called Imperial Saw into the palace and said some words. Mother hates people who take advantage of people's sincerity the most. Even if it's to balance the power, she will let the other party take responsibility. Shen Miao said, knowing but still marrying in. The Empress really likes His Majesty the Emperor. Xie Jingxing did not speak. Empress Xianda's maiden family was an aristocratic family of scholars. In terms of real power, many aristocratic families could not compare to them. But in the end, Empress Dowager Jingxian chose Empress Xianda to be Emperor Yongla's wife. This was because Empress Xianda's maiden family, the chief scribe's residence, was absolutely loyal. Empress Xianda was just like her title, gentle, honest, intelligent, and generous. Empress Dowager Jingxian was different from Emperor Xiaowu. Emperor Yongla could promote other concubines to balance the power, but he only had one wife, and this one wife was to be with him for life. One's character was even more important. She was able to share weal and woe with others in riches and was a real lady from a noble family. She was able to withstand the wind and waves and was able to suppress the brocade. Empress Xianda's maiden family was a loyal and honest person. As for whether Empress Xianda had feelings for Emperor Yongla or not, this was not known. After all, it was a luxury to talk about true feelings in the imperial family. But Empress Xianda had always been calm about the matter of Emperor Yongla not living to the age of 35. Shen Miao said, if it is only for power, she should plan for herself. Xie Jingxing smiled, imperial sister-in-law is very smart and not greedy. Chapter 1036. It was best to not be greedy. Many tragedies were traced back to a single word, greed. They were greedy for power, glory, splendor and wealth, or greedy for affection. Shen Miao thought for a moment before saying, now that consort Jing is pregnant, how do you plan to deal with the Lu family? Xie Jingxing played with Shen Miao's long hair and casually said, what does Lu Jing's pregnancy have to do with us? Water can carry a boat or overturn it. The Lu family thought that they could rest easy with the dragon seed, but in fact they were wrong. With an emperor with dragon seed, some of the opposing people would naturally change sides. How many of the Lu family's soldiers are fence-sitters? They can lean towards the Lu family and also lean towards the imperial family. Shen Miao looked at him, it cannot be just this point, right? Xie Jingxing raised his brows, you think? After preparing for so long, it is clear that consort Jing's pregnancy was an accident. You did not expect this at the beginning. Shen Miao said, if consort Jing was not pregnant, how do you plan to deal with the Lu family? Simple. Xie Jingxing said, ever since imperial older brother ascended the throne, he had been planning to deal with the Lu and Yi families. For so many years, he had been searching for the evidence of the Lu family's army. Now that the collection is more or less complete, it is time to reveal it. At that time, the mouths of the world can be sealed. This is one of the reasons. Secondly, Xie Jingxing said, even though the Lu family's army is powerful in the Great Liang, it is not that there are no other generals. Those generals have almost become imperial older brothers' people in private, and also the MOU army had been accumulating strength. Now the matter is much simpler. Either the evidence is shown, or the Lu family pleads guilty. Lu Jingchun had been arrogant his entire life and would definitely not plead guilty and would turn against the imperial family. It is just nice to catch them all in one fell swoop. When Shen Miao heard him say that, she thought that Xie Jingxing and Emperor Yonglu were indeed brothers. The way they dealt with people was not at all roundabout and was very simple and crude but also effective. Perhaps this was also inherited from Empress Xiao. She said, if it is like this, then why the need to prepare for so many years? One would be able to contend at the beginning. If one started early, then there would be a lot of time left. Xie Jingxing leaned close to her ear and said, young lady, you need to know that our Xia family's men do not like to be sloppy and do not like to be evenly matched. If we want to do it, we will pull it up by the roots. The Lu family's roots are too deep. The earlier we start, the harder it will be to clean them up. Now that the time is ripe, isn't it good to pull them out cleanly? Shen Miao frowned and heard from Xie Jingxing, I know that you like to gamble deep in your bones. In the beginning when you were alone and weak, you dared to scheme against Prince Yu of the first rank, but it is too dangerous and the possibility of self-harm is too high. I do not like it. He said, a Pyrrhic victory with too many sacrifices is also a defeat. Shen Miao had to admit that what Xie Jingxing said was very reasonable. In the beginning she dared to confront Prince Yu of the first rank and even Fu Xiuyi. It was because she was fighting alone and used a stone to hit the jade wares. The one that was injured the most was ultimately the jade wares. Afterwards, as the Shen family was gradually involved, she had to take into account many things and could not be as free as before. And this time for Xie Jingxing, if they were evenly matched in strength, the longer it dragged on, the one who would suffer losses would be the great Liang's commoners. If one had enough strength like now, it would be easy to wipe out the Lu family in one fell swoop and the sacrifices would be reduced to a minimum. But since the Lu family is like this, what about the Yi family? Shen Miao still had doubts and hesitated to speak, but in the end she hesitated to speak. Previously Imperial older brother planned to rope in the Yi family since the Yi family does not have any heirs and only have a young master who is not good at walking and would not be able to stir up any waves. Xie Jingxing said, but since you told me about your dream, Yi Mei and younger brother are enemies. How can enemies be roped in? That would be seeking one's own destruction. He said, do not worry. I will help you take revenge. Chapter 1037. Shen Miao was silent for a long time before softly saying, thank you. To make the other party change a plan that had been planned for a long time, it was not just a matter of words. Everything related to this plan had to be replanned. Not to mention how troublesome it would be, the most frightening thing about a plan was that there would be variables. However, Xie Jingxing was willing to bear all the possible consequences for her. How lucky was she to meet such a person in this lifetime? Xie Jingxing saw that her expression was strange and hooked Shen Miao's chin to make her lift her head up. After a careful look, he said, why are you so moved to this state? Why not use your body to repay me? Shen Miao pushed him and scolded, what nonsense are you talking about? How do you plan to deal with the Yi family? Xie Jingxing thought for a moment and said, this is not difficult. Since the Yi family cannot be part of our imperial family, naturally they are in cahoots with the Lu family. Find the evidence of the Lu and Yi family's private dealings. If the Lu family is in trouble, the Yi family would also be unlucky. Aren't you very smart? How come you don't even know how to frame others? Shen Miao looked at him dumbfoundedly. Xie Jingxing was actually able to say the crime of framing others in such a dignified manner that those who did not know would think that he had done something indomitable. And to frame the prime minister of a country was not such a simple matter. The Yi family is actually easier to deal with than the Lu family. The Yi family is just complicated with the civil officials in the court, but once the Lu family is unlucky, the Yi family would be implicated. As long as the civil officials are not fools, they would draw a clear line with the Yi family. After so many years, the two trusted aides that Emperor Xiao Wu left behind have their strength worn down and are not as glorious as they were in the past. Shen Miao thought about it and said, it is not that their strength has been worn down but that your strength has grown to the point where you do not need to be restrained by them. The cub had finally grown into the king of beasts, so it was time to clean up those clowns in the forest. Xie Jingxing looked at her and teased, you respect me this much? Shen Miao said without any expression, it is respect, it is respect. Since Furen is so supportive, then one must serve Furen well. Xie Jingxing solemnly said and turned over to press Shen Miao under him. Shen Miao, in the Yi residence. Yi Mei and Yi Ku were talking in the room. Yi Mao Kai prided himself on being a scholar, so the furnishings in his room were naturally very elegant. There were paintings and orchids everywhere, but upon closer inspection, the paintings and orchids were all treasured works by famous masters, and the orchids were also high-grade flowers. Even the paperweight on the table was expensive. It could be seen that the Yi family was indeed wealthy. Scholars were true, but poor scholars were not necessarily true. There were exquisite desserts on the table. Yi Mei wore a bright yellow silk robe with lotus flowers inlaid with crystals and a long skirt. Whether it was the material or the workmanship, these clothes were of the best quality. Her appearance was already outstanding, and with this outfit, even the nobles in the palace would pale in comparison. She had a natural charm and was very charming and beautiful. Ye Ke sat opposite her. His clothes were as simple as before, but the fabric was of a higher level. Clearly, in the Yi family, the two of them were living quite well. "Sis, what did you mean by that?" Ye Ke asked with a frown. Yi Mei picked up the tea on the table and took a sip before lightly saying, "Previously when Yi Furen was looking for a daughter, she kept insisting that I am her daughter. This matter was too chaotic and one did not know if it was true or false. But at least we have found a good place to go. After father and mother died, the shops could no longer be taken care of. Moreover, it is much better to be an official's daughter than a merchant's daughter. It is the same for you. With Prime Minister Yi as your father, your career will be smoother." Chapter 1038. Yi Ke smiled bitterly. "Of course I know this, but didn't Yi Maokai not believe in our identities?" Yi Mei and Yi Ke didn't believe that there was such a thing as a pie falling from the sky. But ever since the Yi clan came looking for their kin, the two siblings had no choice but to believe that there was such a good thing in this world. Rumor had it that more than 10 years ago, when Madame Yi was giving birth, she was instigated by a traitor, causing her daughter to wander outside. Finally, they found Yi Mei. Was this true? Yi Mei thought that this was definitely not true. Because she and Yi Ke were born at the same time. However, people would always be paranoid. For example, Madame Yi, who looked very normal, insisted that Yi Mei was her daughter. No matter how she tried to persuade her, she refused to listen. She even insisted on bringing Yi Ke into the Yi mansion because of her relationship with Yi Mei. Yi Mei and her brother were on high alert. Later, Yi Maokai also came to see them. Yi Maokai was much more clear-headed than Madame Yi. He went straight to the point and said that the Yi siblings weren't Madame Ye's children. However, because of Madame Ye's insistence, Yi Maokai didn't want to stop her. For the sake of Madame Ye's health, he was willing to hide this lie and give the Yi siblings the identity of the Yi family's children. What kind of person was Yi Mei? She was incomparably astute. Without knowing the pros and cons, she naturally did not dare to jump into the fire pit. She thought of ways to inquire about the Yi family situation and found out that the Yi family was in a delicate position with the royal family. In addition, the Yi family only had a young master who could not walk and could be considered to have no successor. Yi Maokai naturally needed a pair of children to shut the mouths of the world. Mutually benefiting, each taking what they needed. A cripple couldn't stir up any big waves. Wouldn't the wealth of the Yi residents fall into Yi Ke's hands in the end? And with the Yi family's name, if Yi Mei wanted to marry into a noble family in the future, it would be a matter of course. Even if Yi Maokai had other ideas, the siblings were not fools. They would naturally think of ways to get what they wanted. Therefore, the Yi siblings entered the Yi mansion and became the Yi family's young miss and young master. Madame Yi trusted them and Yi Maokai guarded against them. This made no difference to the Yi siblings. The Yi family was just a springboard, a backer that could help them walk faster in the future. Yi Mei said, "It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. You and I are both businessmen, so just treat him as a businessman. It's just that this deal seems to be a loss. I didn't expect things to turn out like this." Yi Mei said, before, I thought the Yi family was strong in Long Yi. Yi Mei's phone, Yi Mei's Maokai, Yi family, families Yi family's sect. However, in recent days, I feel that something is wrong. The Yi family is not as good as I thought. It seems to be in imminent danger. If we take a step forward, we will be able to live without worries. However, if we don't do well, we will fall into a bottomless abyss and suffer a double loss. When Yiku heard this, his expression also became somewhat ugly. He said, You mean, the Yi family's current situation is very dangerous. I don't know if it's dangerous. Yi Mei sneered, Yi Maokai, that old fox, hid it well and refused to let us know the Yi family situation. Although Madame Yi trusts me, she trusts Yi Maokai even more. It is harder than ascending to heaven to get information out of her. But the more it is like this, the more uneasy I feel. I feel that the Yi residence is not good. Maybe you are thinking too much. Yiku thought about it and shook his head. The Yi family is the prime minister of the Great Liang. How could it reach the step you said? As for the Yi family being wary of us, it is probably because the time is too short. After all, we are all in the same boat. Otherwise, when you suggested to assassinate Rui Wangfei, the Yi family would not have agreed so easily. It is a pity that Rui Wangfei was lucky and was saved by that scholar, escaping a calamity. Chapter 1039. Yi Mei's eyes congealed before she suddenly laughed. She really has a good life and really good luck. But older sister. Yiku looked at her. In the beginning, why did you let the Yi family kill Princess Rui? Was it really because you wanted to enter the residence of Prince Rui? One always feels that this decision was made in a hurry and without much consideration. Yi Mei paused and thought for a while before saying, If I say that the first time I saw her, I felt that I do not want her to live in this world, would you believe it? Yiku was startled for a moment, but Yi Mei was still deep in thought. When she just came to Long Yi with the Yi family, it was just as Xia Yuan had returned from hunting in the imperial city. Yi Maokai gave her the antidote and wanted her to pretend that she had inadvertently opened the bounty list to save him. Naturally, the Yi family could take out the antidote and most likely Prince Rui's injury was related to them. If Yi Mei used the identity of a Yi family member to save him, it would be hard to avoid suspicion from the Yi family. It would be better to say that she was looking for relatives, and it would be more logical to find out that she was from the Yi family. Yi Maokai wanted to use Yi Mei to connect to the residence of Prince Rui. Yi Mei was born beautiful and was also Xia Yuan's savior. The longer she stayed in the residence of Prince Rui, the more natural some things would happen. At that time, Yi Mei saw Prince Rui, Xia Yuan. Towards men, Yi Mei could not say that she loved or did not love them. She had ambitions and means, and men were tools to achieve her goals. If there was a better one, she would change to another one. To her, it was like a beautiful person needed to be matched with gorgeous clothes, precious jewelry, and a rich residence. Naturally, she needed a noble husband. Xia Yuan was the best one she had seen since she grew up. He had a high position of power at a young age and was also born with a romantic beauty. Even if he was lying quietly, he had a natural noble air and attracted the attention of others. Not to mention that Yi Mei had heard from Yi Maokai that Xia Yuan was a very powerful person with many means. It was normal for her to want such a good person for herself, and Xia Yuan's indifference made her want to conquer him. She heard that Xia Yuan had a princess, but Yi Mei had never seen her before. Knowing that that woman was the daughter of a Ming-Chi military general, she did not think much of it. The daughter of a military general was unbearably vulgar and came here alone without any backing. Yi Mei did not even feel that the other person had the qualifications to be her opponent. Until the moment she saw Shen Miao. Shen Miao's clothes were still somewhat muddy and her hair was untidy. Her face was also travel-worn, but she stood in front of Yi Mei against the light. Her posture was dignified, as if she was an overbearing beast declaring her sovereignty. It was obvious that Yi Mei was the brightest and Shen Miao was in a difficult situation. But at that moment, Yi Mei had an absurd feeling that even if she used all her strength, she wouldn't be able to snatch anything from the woman in front of her. In the days that followed, Shen Miao was rather cold towards her, and occasionally Yi Mei could feel a faint disgust and hatred. But since ancient times, a woman's feelings were all relative. Not only did Shen Miao feel uncomfortable with her, Yi Mei also felt uncomfortable with Shen Miao. One heard that Shen Miao had parents who doted on her, eldest brother who cared for her, good friends and sisters, and also Xia Yuan who doted on her. Although it was the Cold War, the bystanders knew best. If there was no love, why would there be a Cold War? It was clear that he loved her to the bone. That was why his every move would involve his own emotions. The more she compared, the more unwilling Yi Mei felt. Chapter 1040. Now one heard that Prince Rui and Princess Rui have a deep relationship. Yiku said, a few days ago one heard that both of them held hands and roamed around Longyi City. It can be seen that Prince Rui loves Shen Miao to the bones. Speaking of which, that Shen Miao's appearance is not as good as yours, one do not know how the other party is so dead set on her. Yiku looked at Yi Mei, older sister, do you still want to enter the residence of Prince Rui? Yi Mei was somewhat distraught. She could not display her advantage in front of Xia Yuan at all. Initially in Qinzhou, if she wanted to use any man, naturally she would be invincible. But facing Xia Yuan, she always felt that she did not know where to start. Xia Yuan did not pay attention to her at all. Yi Mei could feel that Xia Yuan's gaze on her was no different from looking at Lu Wanner, and was no different from all the young ladies of official families in Mingqi. She felt that she could not conquer Xia Yuan because Xia Yuan did not see her as a woman. Thinking of this, Yi Mei said in an evasive manner, let's talk about it later. Yi Mao Kai did not mention the matter for the time being, so there is no need to think about it. The most urgent matter is to find out what is wrong with the Yi family. If the Yi family is unlucky one day, you and I cannot be implicated, so it is better to make plans early. Actually, Yiku hemmed and hawed. Previously Yi Mao Kai looked for me once and had the intention to let you enter the palace. Enter the palace. Yi Mei's eyebrows jumped and she suddenly laughed. She laughed in a flirtatious manner, but there was a meaningful feeling. Yi Mao Kai saw that Xia Yuan was not easy to hook up with and let me climb up to the imperial family. Enter the palace. Naturally it was not an ordinary palace, but to enter the palace to be the emperor's woman. Yi Mei sneered, there is no air in the palace, so there must be something fishy. If I enter the palace and do not have an heir, one would have no one to rely on after 100 years. If the emperor dies, would one have to be buried with him? Yi Mao Kai only has the idea of befriending the imperial family. No matter if I live or die, I will not return to the palace. Let him break this thought. At the end of the words, there was a sinister meaning. It wasn't that Yi Mei hadn't thought of entering the palace, but she had always been good at analyzing the pros and cons. Now that the emperor didn't have a son, it was probably the emperor's own problem. How long could a woman without a son live in the inner palace? Not to mention the harem, even if it was the backyard of a wealthy family, without a son, the only outcome would be death, or a lifetime of living in peace. This was not what Yi Mei wanted. She wanted to climb up, keep climbing up, and enjoy power. These were more important than being a woman who entered the palace and became an emperor. Yiku said awkwardly, I also guessed that you thought so, so I immediately told Yi Mao Kai that it was impossible. Oh. Yi Mei glanced at him and lightly said, you really told him that? Yiku avoided Yi Mei's gaze and said, sister, you still don't believe me. Yi Mei smiled, but no one knew what that smile meant. She said, "In short, you and I have to be clear about our identities. The Yi family isn't our real family, and the Yi family isn't family either. Moreover, family members have their own selfish motives. I will think of a way to figure out what exactly happened to the Yi family and what they plan to do. If one day the Yi family is unlucky, the two of us shouldn't fall into it. The best plan is to retreat unscathed." "Sister, it's not that serious." Yi Ke disagreed. "If it really was that serious, the Yi family would have already started looking for a way out for themselves." Yi Mei laughed coldly. "I'm afraid that the Yi family doesn't even know that a disaster is imminent." Chapter 1041. Yi Hongguang liked Yi Mei and Yi Ke very much. He probably felt that the Yi Fu had been quiet for many years. Suddenly having siblings come, he was always happy. His personality was also very pure, like a child. He didn't seem to have been raised by the Yi family. But thinking about it, he never left the Fu. Other than playing chess with Yi Maokai, he only read. It was natural to have such a pure personality. Yi Mei smiled and asked, "Does third brother have something?" Yi Hongguang didn't look like Yi Maokai, nor did he look like Yi Madam. He probably looked more like that concubine who had passed away. His features were very delicate. He also smiled and said, "Father wants you to go to the study. I came to deliver the 9 chain rings to Dijijia on the way. I heard that Dijijia is an expert in solving the 9 chain rings, so I brought it over." Yi Mei took the 9 chain rings and said, "When I solve it, I will personally deliver it to third brother." "Thank you, Dijijia." Yi Hongguang seemed very excited. Yi Mei smiled faintly and turned to look at Yi Ke. They both saw the seriousness in each other's eyes. At this time, Yi Maokai called the two of them into the study. It was clear that there was something new for them to do. Using the two of them as chess pieces, but would Yi Mei and the others be obedient and let others do as they pleased? It would definitely be another round of guessing and I would fight. The news of Jing Fei's pregnancy spread throughout all of Longyi the next day. Emperor Yongle had been childless for so many years and naturally there were all sorts of speculations. The most common one was that Emperor Yongle was suffering from a hidden illness and was unable to have children of his own. It was precisely because of this that the open and secret struggles in the imperial court had never stopped. But Jing Fei was pregnant. This meant a lot more. It most likely wasn't Emperor Yongle's problem. Maybe Emperor Yongle had purposefully done it. But now that Emperor Yongle had made Jing Fei pregnant, it seemed to explain some problems. Therefore, the court officials started to move again, wanting to send the daughter of the Fu into the palace. On the other side, some of Longye's court officials that were neutral and had a wait-and-see attitude started to make new decisions. No matter what, Jing Fei's pregnancy had a great impact on the Hogong of the Great Liang Court. When Shen Miao talked about the matter to Xie Jingxing, she said, "Previously because the emperor did not have any children, the inner palace was peaceful and there were not many disputes, but once the news of consort Jing's pregnancy spread out, all the ministers wanted to send their daughters into the palace and rush to give birth. One feared that the inner palace would be in chaos. A pool of calm water suddenly stirred up by a stone thrown into it was the scariest thing." Xie Jingxing smiled, "That would also need to be able to give birth. Emperor Yongle had all of them drink birth control soup. Jing Fei was an accident, but because of this accident, the palace would definitely be stricter in this area in the future and wouldn't let anyone find any loopholes. But the Lu family is too impatient." Shen Miao propped her chin up. "Before the palace spread it out, it was already spread out. The entire Longyi knows about it now. The faster one wears, the faster one will die." Xie Jingxing was wearing his outer robes when Shen Miao stood up to help him tidy his collar. He looked down at Shen Miao and said, "But if you are pregnant with my child, I will also let others spread it to everyone in Longyi." Shen Miao glared at him fiercely, "If you dare to let other females be pregnant with your child." "What?" Xie Jingxing frowned. Shen Miao pulled his collar harshly and said fiercely, "The matter of the entire household of Prince Rui being exterminated will be spread to everyone in Longyi." Xie Jingxing laughed out loud and held her waist before whispering ambiguously in her ear, "One fear that it will not work if one is exhausted with a fierce wife at home." Chapter 1042. Valiant. Shen Miao was about to get angry. Xie Jingxing still wanted to say something when octagonal voice was heard from outside, "Master, Furen, the horse carriage is ready. Shall we depart now?" Shen Miao released her hands and said, "Come back first before talking." Xie Jingxing smiled evilly in the midst of chaos, "You can pick as you please." Shen Miao, get lost. They wanted to enter the palace. These few days Xie Jingxing frequently ran to the palace and should be discussing with Emperor Yonglu about how to deal with the Lu family. The Lu family most likely felt the pressure and started to arrange their troops. On the other hand, they felt that Consort Jing was pregnant and Emperor Yonglu would definitely not do anything to the Lu family. On one hand, they were suspicious and on the other hand, they firmly believed that the Lu family was in a mess and it was the imperial family's intention. Various forces started to arrange and Xie Jingxing appeared to be exceptionally busy. Shen Miao also guessed the current and future situation of Ming Qi from the letter that Pei Lang left behind and at the same time helped the Shen family to escape from Fu Xiuyi surveillance. Today Shen Miao also planned to enter the palace to see Empress Xianda and coincidentally Xie Jingxing also wanted to enter the palace so both husband and wife went together. Upon reaching the palace, Xie Jingxing went to the imperial study to see Emperor Yonglu. Shen Miao wanted to see Empress Xianda and Tao Gugu led her there. Shen Miao saw that the path was covered with carpets and there were more palace maids walking in the palace. She felt it was strange and asked what was going on. Tao Gugu said, "This was instructed by Consort Jing." Fearing that one would injure the child while walking, there were more palace maids than usual. These days the womb was tormented up and down. The Empress was kind and could not be bothered to argue with her, but she almost turned the inner palace upside down. Tao Gugu was Empress Xianda's female official and did not need to care about what she said. Because of her relationship with Empress Xianda, she treated Shen Miao as one of her own and did not conceal her disgust towards Consort Jing. She said, "He didn't do anything too excessive, but he was very annoying and made me feel unhappy." Shen Miao raised her eyebrows and asked, "Then what is the emperor's attitude?" Tao Gugu smiled strangely. The emperor did not change his attitude towards Consort Jing because of this child and it was because Consort Jing was sulking so she came up with so many tricks. She then thought of something and said, "Today, the young miss and young master of the Yi family also entered the palace. The young miss of the Yi family also came to visit Jing Fei. She's probably in Jinghua Palace." Qin Wangfei didn't see anyone from the Yi family when she entered the palace. Yi family. Shen Miao shook her head, "I did not see it." But her heart was thinking. The Yi family's young miss and young master naturally referred to Yi Mei and Yi Ku. Yi Mei and Yi Ku came to see Jing Fei. The Lu family and the Yi family did not have a particularly close relationship to begin with. How could it have reached this point? Suddenly coming to see Jing Fei, she most likely had ulterior motives. Was she planning something? But to let Yi Mei talk to Jing Fei, not to mention Yi Mei, Jing Fei was stupid. How could she bear such a great responsibility? "I'm afraid the Yi family has found the wrong person." She vaguely felt that something was wrong, but she was here to see Empress Xianda, so it was not good to talk about this matter with Tao Gugu. With doubts, she went to the imperial garden. Empress Xianda was not in Wei Yong Palace. The summer gradually came to an end. Even though Long Ye's summer was long, at the end, it also started to feel cold. There were many hot days and it was rare to have a refreshing time. It was good to sit in the garden and enjoy the wind. When Shen Miao saw Empress Xianda, she was boiling tea to drink. Seeing Shen Miao arrive, she invited her to taste tea. This is Qiu Shan Huang, the new tea leaf sent this year. Ben Gong likes it very much. You should also try it. Empress Xianda said with a smile. She seemed to like drinking tea very much. She herself was as fragrant as the tea leaves and was a woman with a lingering aftertaste. That look was very complicated, and Shen Miao could not explain it clearly. Perhaps it was envy and a little self-mockery. She said, "Perhaps, what you said is right. But Ben Gong's half-life has passed, and there is no time to change." She was somewhat embarrassed. Shen Miao sensed that compared to the last time, Empress Xianda looked more experienced, but it was not her appearance. She still looked elegant and graceful, charming and had the virtue and steadiness of an empress, but her eyes had a faint vicissitude, as if she was an old woman. Chapter 1044. Was it because of Consort Jing? Shen Miao thought about it in her heart and asked, heard that the Yi siblings also entered the palace today and saw Consort Jing? The Lu family produced an empress with a spoiled dragon seed, thus the bugs and Long Yi would naturally become restless. The Yi family came and went to the palace and today they came to see Ben Gong, but Ben Gong saw that the drunkard's intention was not wine, so Ben Gong followed them. Most likely the Yi family saw that Lu Jing was pregnant and had other intentions, so they wanted to probe Lu Jing's side. Empress Xianda's gaze was somewhat long. The young lady that the Yi family found was extremely beautiful. Not only beautiful but also intelligent. Not only intelligent but also ambitious. This kind of female is most suitable to survive in the inner palace. Shen Miao's gaze slightly stagnated. Yi Mei wants to enter the palace. Mei Furen finally became the Empress of Ming Qi's Fu Xiu Yi, and now not only did her identity become a great Liang person, even her future also changed. Could it be that she wanted to become Emperor Yong Li's woman and also want to be the great Liang's empress? Shen Miao felt that it was very ridiculous and funny. Approximately so. Empress Xianda said carelessly, but Long Ye's harem only exists in name. If Yi Mei wants to fight for affection, jealousy, and power, she has miscalculated. Moreover, His Majesty does not intend to accept anyone now. What if she has other ways? Shen Miao asked. Yi Mei was vicious and merciless, and would climb up by hook or by crook. She had personally experienced this in the previous lifetime, so to let Yi Mei return without any achievements, it was impossible no matter how one looked at it. Shen Miao did not want to underestimate the opponent and did not want to make a big mistake because of her own carelessness. Empress Xianda looked strangely at Shen Miao and said, "You seem to dislike this Yi family's young lady." Then she said with relief, "Indeed, this Yi Mei's heart is not right and Ben Gong can see it." Ben Gong had stayed in the palace for so many years and Yi Mei's eyes are too greedy, so it is natural for you to be wary of her. At the beginning during the imperial hunt, there were rumors that you targeted Yi Mei because of jealousy, thus Ben Gong guessed that Yi Mei was not simple. Seeing it today, it is indeed so. Shen Miao said, "This official's wife indeed do not like her. Because of Jing Xing." Empress Xianda blinked her eyes mischievously and joked, "Don't worry, Jing Xing himself is very smart, he won't like a smarter woman. I don't like greedy and ambitious people like Yi Mei even more." Shen Miao. Empress Xianda's words made her sound like she was very stupid. Jing Xing and His Majesty have discussed that the Yi family should not be too involved. Ben Gong guesses that you are also one of the reasons. However, Ben Gong does not like the Yi family in the first place. Although the Yi family is a civil official, they do not have the demeanor of a civil official. Instead, they are slick and hypocritical, secretly harboring thoughts of disloyalty. Everyone in the Yi family cultivates crooked ways, but Empress Xiande seemed to think of something and said, "The young master of the Yi family is not bad. Ben Gong talked to him, and he is as innocent as a child. It is a pity that he is not good at walking, and is not respected in the Fu." Shen Miao had also heard of the matters of the crippled young master of the Yi family, but she did not know what his character was like. Hearing Empress Xiande say that, she could not help but sigh. He was a rare good person, but his luck was too bad. Empress Xiande said, "In a short while, the situation in Long Yi will be very tense. One fear that the residence of Prince Rui will be closely watched. Jing Xing is often outside, and there are places in the residence that cannot be taken care of. It is said that it is hard to guard against. You have to be more careful." Shen Miao's expression turned solemn. This official's wife understands. Dealing with the Lu and Yi families would undoubtedly set off a storm in Long Yi City. As Xie Jingxing's wife and the Wang Fei of the residence of Prince Rui, she would naturally be the target of public criticism. Empress Xiande patted her hands. "You have to start learning these now." Chapter 1045. Shen Miao complied, and just as she was speaking, she saw Tao Gugu and a little palace maid walking over. Tao Gugu said, "Hui Pin and Ning Guiren are quarreling at the flowery small building. Right now they are at a point where they can't be reconciled. Nyang Nyang, do you want to go and take a look?" These days, Jing Fei was pregnant and the other womenfolk in the palace were starting to lose their composure. Originally, no one had any heirs, so it didn't matter if they were favored by the emperor or not. But now it was different. When one person ascended to the heavens, everyone else wanted to do it. Everyone had their own selfish motives and there were more conflicts than in the past. In addition, there were many officials who had the idea of sending people to Emperor Yongli's side. This inner palace was no longer as peaceful as it used to be. Once in a while, there would be some chaos. Although it was not a big deal, it would always cause trouble for others. A displeased expression appeared on Empress Xiande's face. No matter how good one's temper was, after being troubled like this all day, one would be in a bad mood. "Your ladyship, go take a look first." Shen Miao said, "No need to care about me." She did not have the thought of following Empress Xiande to watch the bustle, as Long Ye's inner palace had nothing to do with Shen Miao and could not help at all. Empress Xiande was helpless and could only stand up and said to Shen Miao, "Ben Gong will first make a trip to the flowers courtyard. Qin Wang Fei can rest here and drink tea. If one feels bored, then walk around the garden, as long as one does not go too far." Shen Miao had anise and fennel by her side and they were all skilled in martial arts, so she was not afraid of any accidents. Moreover, there were guards everywhere in the palace, so naturally it was safe. Shen Miao complied and Empress Xiande and Tao Gugu walked far away. As Shen Miao held the teacup, Empress Xiande's words appeared in her mind. She felt that Empress Xiande's words had a hidden meaning and had thought before, if Emperor Yongle really could not live for long, after Emperor Yongle left, who would sit on the Great Liang's country? Previously, Jing Fei wasn't pregnant. It seemed that their plan wasn't to let Emperor Yongli's son inherit the throne. Moreover, the poison in Emperor Yongli's body had not been cleared and the children he gave birth to might be congenitally deficient and would not be able to take on the great cause. As such, the only one with the imperial bloodline who had the qualifications to inherit the Great Liang's throne was only Xie Jingxing. Did Xie Jingxing become the emperor in his previous life? At least when she died, when Ming Qi fell, Emperor Yongle was still alive and Xie Jingxing only led the troops to conquer the world. Was Xie Jingxing going to be the emperor in this life? If Xie Jingxing became the emperor, she would definitely be the empress. Since ancient times, there was no precedent of only one person in the inner palace. She was certain of what she said to Empress Xianda, and she would indeed not tolerate her husband having other women. Once this possibility came true, what Shen Miao could do was, since you are not interested, I will divorce. Breaking off with Xie Jingxing. However, fate was hard to come by. She didn't want to cut off the fate of husband and wife that she had accumulated for 2 lifetimes. Feeling a little annoyed, she stood up and decided to walk to the side of the pond to get some fresh air. Star Anise and Fennel followed her. The garden was densely forested, and under the layers of trees, there were winding paths, one after another, extending in all directions. Everywhere there was a new scenery, and it was very elegant. It was just that Shen Miao was not in the mood to appreciate the beautiful scenery. She walked to the side of the pond and the cool breeze blew on her face. It was refreshing and very comfortable and also calmed her down. After standing for a while, she planned to return to the stone table and sit down. She guessed that Empress Xianda should be back by now. Before leaving, her eyes casually glanced at the forest on the side. It was this glance. Shen Miao suddenly stopped in her tracks. She stared at the side and felt that the blood in her body was both cold and hot. It rushed to her head and she almost couldn't stand steadily. Star Anise and Fennel also looked nervously to the side, but they didn't find anything. Shen Miao suddenly pushed aside the bushes in front of her and ran to the path on the side. "Madam!" Star Anise and Fennel were shocked and hurried to follow. Shen Miao ran so fast that she didn't notice her hair and clothes rubbing against the dust on the branches. Looking closely, her hands were still trembling violently, her lips were white, and her eyes were wide open. She didn't dare to relax at all. She saw it. The youth's face was hidden in the branches of the forest, with a slightly shy smile and a familiar expression. It was Fu Ming. Her son, Fu Ming. She couldn't be wrong, she couldn't be wrong. Shen Miao ran desperately, but there were 8 paths in the imperial garden, and each path led to a different place. The trees were dense and the youth disappeared in a flash, almost making her think that it was her illusion. There was no path in front, only a corner of the dark lake, a rockery, and a long pavilion. Shen Miao couldn't find the youth. Fennel and Star Anise followed behind and saw Shen Miao standing in the same place, not knowing what she was thinking and looking very lost. The 3 of them didn't make any other movements, but suddenly heard a woman's short scream in front, followed by the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Plop! Chapter 1046. At the end of the fake mountain was a long flight of stairs. At the bottom of the stairs, there was a woman lying on the ground. There were large patches of blood under the woman. Shen Miao and the 2 servant girls stilled. They went forward to check and were shocked to find that the woman was Jing Fei. At this moment, Jing Fei was clutching her stomach, her face covered in sweat. Her face was as white as paper. She curled into a ball and moaned in pain. Shen Miao looked up and saw that the long flight of stairs had traces of being rubbed by someone. Obviously, Lu Jing had rolled down from this flight of stairs. Seeing Shen Miao, Lu Jing stretched out her hand with great effort and spat out 2 words, "Save me." Then she fainted. Octagonal Anise asked, "Madam, this, call someone over." Shen Miao frowned. She is after all pregnant with the dragon seed. Moreover, if the matter of seeing someone die and not saving was spread out, the one who would suffer would only be the residents of Prince Rui. Even though she was not willing to get involved in these dirty matters, she was not willing to let the residents of Prince Rui bear a bad name. Octagonal Anise nodded and hurried out. Fennel looked around and shook her head. "There's no one else here." They had long escaped. Shen Miao's eyes congealed. To be able to hurt people so openly in the palace, the other party's guts are not small. She then looked at the dying Jing Fei on the ground and sighed. Shen Miao had seen those women miscarry in the palace. With Jing Fei's appearance, one feared that the child in her stomach would not be able to be kept. Shen Miao did not sympathize with Lu Jing, but only felt pity for the unborn child. If it was not reincarnated into Lu Jing's stomach, how would it meet such a calamity at birth? Thinking of the child, Shen Miao suddenly thought of the youth's face that she saw in the forest. Her heart suddenly contracted. If that was really Fu Ming, why didn't he want to see her? If that wasn't Fu Ming, how could he have such an impression of Fu Ming? Shen Miao was thinking that there were only so many people coming and going in the palace. After the matter at Lu Jing's end was settled, she would ask Empress Xianda and Xie Jingxing to find that youth. She did not believe that it was an illusion. She was very clear-headed. The people that Ba Jiao called soon arrived and were shocked to see Jing Fei in such a state. Even though Emperor Yonglu didn't seem to care about the pregnant Jing Fei was pregnant with Emperor Yongli's first child. Anyone with a discerning eye would be able to tell that the child would not be able to survive. Without saying much, these people quickly sent Jing Fei to Jinghua Palace. They called for the Grand Doctor and sent people to notify Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xianda. Because Shen Miao was the first person to see Jing Fei, no matter if it was related to her or not, she could not escape responsibility and could not leave. Fennel was a little uneasy. The matters of the imperial family were the most complicated, especially when it involved the dragon race. The most difficult thing was to involve Shen Miao. Fennel even suspected that this was a conspiracy. Emperor Yonglu and Empress Xianda quickly rushed over, but Shen Miao discovered that Xie Jingxing was not around and did not know where he went. She had wanted to talk to him about Fu Ming, but she could only give up now. When Emperor Yonglu came, he only asked the surrounding people. At that time, Jing Fei didn't even have a maid by her side. Otherwise, she wouldn't have fallen down the stairs without anyone to support her. He could only ask Shen Miao for help. Empress Xianda frowned and asked, wasn't Jing Fei talking with Miss Yi in Jinghua Palace? Why did she go to the Imperial Garden? And where is Miss Yi? She didn't suspect Shen Miao at all. Shen Miao was slightly surprised. Before she could speak, a short scream suddenly came from the room. Then, in the bedroom of Jinghua Palace, Jing Fei's maids ran out and knelt in front of Empress Xianda and Emperor Yonglu, continuously kowtowing. The Grand Doctor walked out and wiped his sweat. He said in a low voice, Emperor, this old subject is useless. Jing Fei has passed away. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.